Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the City Commission Conference meeting this July 7th, 2020, the City of Fort Lauderdale. How is everybody doing?
Good.
Good. I see
Doing well.
Commissioner Glassman there.
Here I am. Can you hear me?
I don't see your face.
Hold on. I'm coming. Here I am.
Okay, very good.
Thank you. I want you to be happy.
Okay. All right. So welcome, everybody, and thank you for being here. The city manager has had requested that we have our conference meeting this afternoon, and but before we begin, I have to read something into the record. The City of Fort Lauderdale will be hosting its meeting in a virtual format until further notice. The public can listen to and view virtual meetings at fortlauderdale.gov/FLTV and youtube.com/City of Fort Lauderdale, as well as on Comcast Channel 78 and AT&T UVerse Channel 99. Those who wish to speak on an agenda item and have not already signed up, please visit www.fortlauderdale.gov/VC as in Victor, C as in Comcast, meeting, sign up. www.lauderdale.gov/VC meetings to sign up. To help ensure the same decorum as our in-person meetings, we ask that you please abide by the following guidelines. Are you listening, Vice Mayor? Please refrain from any behavior that is disruptive, distracting, profane, or inhibits the meeting in any way.
Is his audio kind of in and out, or is that just me? Heather, you're saying it is.
Am I?
Yeah, it's not good.
Coming from your laptop, so if you don't mind me checking.
Echoing.
Right.
I'm not on my laptop.
This
It's
one.
your laptop.
This one right here.
Yeah. Are you missing my pearls of wisdom?
Hanging on every word, so, you know.
Okay, I'm going to count to 10. Tell me if I'm doing this, if it's okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Now do it in Greek, and I'll tell you.
Wow.
Yeah, that
My
actually,
Greek school teacher will be happy.
very nice. Yeah, that sounded a little bit better
Great.
for me, at least.
Okay.
I understood that.
You want to? Well, the meeting will now be conducted in Greek for the rest. Okay. While you are on the phone waiting for your opportunity to speak, please mute the meeting broadcast on FLTV, YouTube, Comcast, or AT&T if you're watching simultaneously to avoid delays with the broadcast. I will call upon you when it is your turn to speak and also notify you when your time has expired. City staff has automatically added speakers into listen-only mode, and you will be unmuted to speak when recognized. Once you have completed speaking, you will be muted and may either hang up to exit the meeting or stay connected to listen to the remainder of the meeting. Did that come across okay?
Well, echoing.
Still
Why
echoing.
don't we try to have Commissioner Moritas and Vice Mayor Glassman? Could you both go to mute on your end? And let's see if that, all right, try it now, Mayor.
The City of Fort Lauderdale will be hosting its meetings in a virtual format until further notice.
That's much better.
I don't hear the echo.
Much better.
Yeah, that sounded better.
Okay, so I think you guys have to remain muted until you're ready to speak. Okay. So let us begin with City Commission reports. Commissioner Moritas, do you have any reports you'd like to share with us?
I do, Mayor. I won't take up too much time, but obviously I know we have a lot of issues to discuss, and I'm sure we will talk a little bit more about reopening later. But I did want to say I was on a conference call hosted by Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, along with Commissioner Sorensen and other elected officials from Broward and Dade. And obviously we are all concerned about the increase in cases and really our ability to enforce all the CDC guidelines. I'm thankful that we are partnering with the county, and our code team has been out there along with you, Mayor, checking out businesses and making sure everyone is in compliance. So I appreciate that. I question, because I really feel like we need to do everything we can to keep our residents safe while allowing businesses to remain open. So I'd like to kind of focus maybe a little bit more on enforcement. And is there anything else we can do as a city, maybe in partnership with our county, and to just really enforce these guidelines? And I'm a little bit concerned about maybe the waterways and the beaches. How do we, I know it's easier to go into a business and say, do we see everyone in compliance? But maybe finding a person or a group of people who may be on a boat and or anchoring up or on the waterways, that's probably a whole different level of enforcement. So I guess I just wanted to ask that question. Mayor, is there anything, I know you had your mayor's meeting recently.
Well, we had a mayor's meeting yesterday, and the purpose of the meeting was to listen to the medical experts in Broward County explain to us recent data in order to determine what steps forward we need to take. As you pointed out correctly, the surge in new cases is alarming, and in trying to contact trace those new cases has been overwhelming for the system. While there are contact tracing practices going on right now, I have to tell you that it's just not able to really follow through and find out what the source of all the new infections are coming from. There are speculations based on the age group. There's speculation based on anecdotal evidence, we now will go. So all that, the purpose of that meeting was to instruct or advise the county administrator as to measures going forward to try to dampen the rate of infection. So we are waiting with bated breath as we speak to see what the county is going to do with regard to the openings of business, the closings, or other enforcement measures that they would like to implement going forward. It's my understanding that, I don't even want to say what my understanding is, because no matter what I say, it's always going to be, we never can predict it, because even in Miami-Dade, it seemed to me that the county was prepared to follow Miami-Dade to the letter of what they did yesterday, but now they're changing their mind. So I think that's delaying the response of Broward County in its emergency order, which it was supposed to have issued by now. So let me just say this. I know that our city staff has been extremely aggressive at enforcing public places such as restaurants, bars, and the like, and has not been shy in either closing them down, fining them, or both, which is really not what we want to do in this community. We're not here to penalize people. We're trying to just make their spaces safe spaces for people to come to. We don't want to shut the city down. People need to work. No one wants to sit around in a house and get stir crazy. So, Chris, do you want to add to this at all? What are you seeing going forward based on the level of new infections happening in our community?
So certainly the numbers are going in the wrong direction, and as we did this last weekend, we talked about doing different things ourselves, making different orders, and then the county has telegraphed that they intend on doing something in response to the mayor's call yesterday and in response to some of the closures that Dade County has done. So they've tipped their hand that something is coming. I, like you, don't want to speculate, because yesterday I would have guessed it was one thing, and today I would guess it would be something different. Yes, the encouragement of continuing to do what we did that kept that line flat is where we still need to be. You know, we can, to the commissioner's point, we do have Marine Patrol on the water side, certainly not as many as we have code officers that are on the land side. But I think, and we may even have it happen while we're here in the joint setting today, we may see something out of Broward County this afternoon, and if we do, we'll break in with what it is. But I think that there's going to be a look towards, well, again, I don't even know that I want to speculate.
I think
I called the county, well, I talked with the county attorney's office this afternoon to try to get some kind of inkling as to what they were doing, and that it's a work in progress and they're working on it.
what that tells you is two things. Number one, that there really was no consensus amongst the mayors in the meeting on the conference call yesterday. And number two, it sounds like they haven't really decided even for themselves what they want to do. I've encouraged the county mayor and the county administrator to maintain the status quo in terms of openings and closings of the various businesses. I do know that the county is eager to accelerate enforcement procedures and give us more tools in the toolkit to enforce some of the rules we already have in place. I would hope that the county, with its CARES Act money, would provide our city with additional monies, hire more code enforcement people. That they indicated are a priority for them as well as we have indicated for ourselves. So, like Chris has said, it's still a work in progress. I'm not sure they quite know where they want to land, so we just have to wait and see.
Okay, yeah, and follow up on that CARES Act, thank you for mentioning that. And Chris, thank you for sitting on hold for 8 hours so you could speak on behalf of the city and the communications we sent over to the county. I do think we are receiving a fair portion of the money that's going to Broward County, and then that's coming down to cities based on what we all did a couple weeks ago. So thank you for that. I just want to go over a couple things just happening in District 1, and then I'll turn it over. Thank you for the fireworks in the Gulf North Beach restaurants and shops area. That area is definitely improving and changing, and thank you to Transportation and Mobility also for working along with me and the business owners for the past couple of years. We will start the project next week that we have been working on the past 2 years. We're basically going to redo the two streets there, 32nd Street and 33rd Street, and basically the parking and the median, and then they'll have electricity in the median for lights, and really just change the character of that new landscaping and permanent lighting as well. So they're excited about that. Ben Rogers has done a good job, so thank you for that. And moving forward, so that'll start next week, and it'll go until Light Up the Gulf or Thanksgiving time, whichever. Hopefully we have light up events this year. So that's just an update. Also, I wanted to ask real quick, the closures. We are currently closing 33rd Street at night, but we're kind of discussing with businesses kind of when do we stop that? Are we still closing Las Olas every weekend? Has that continued, or did we stop that? What's going on with Las Olas?
We did close it. Yeah, we did have it closed this last weekend, I believe, in to the extent that we are unaware of any demonstration type activity, we intend on continuing to allow that closure on weekends on Las Olas.
Okay, so yeah, just keep maybe the Gulf in the loop if you maybe change or decide. Some business owners think maybe we don't need it. Some maybe think that we need to continue it. So we're having conversations right now. So right now we're going to keep them closed every night, but we'll see what happens there. And then obviously the construction is going to affect those businesses too. Gulf Mile Sidewalk, we've been talking about this for about 6 months now. Also, we did recently meet with their association, the project manager, to review the renderings. We met with their board and the President's Association to present the renderings of this mile-long sidewalk, landscaping, lighting improvement, and then we will get public input once we get back from commission break and move that project forward. So those are two projects that are going on in District 1. And then my last question or concern, I have had a few communications that was brought up at my meeting last night too, about the new parking rate. and people are trying to register for it and having a little bit of difficulty. It seemed like the system may be kind of, I don't want to say overloaded, but pretty busy. I just wondered if anyone else is having any feedback about residents trying to get registered for the new parking program. And then also, I just want to confirm that we still have employee parking rates. I know we talked about resident versus non-resident, but I wasn't clear where we were. I did see that concern come from one business that it's expensive for employees, and I believe we have a whole rate structure. I think Ben may have sent a communication to us, but Chris, any updates on that?
So let me go to Ben Rogers, who's here at the meeting, and let's ask him, since he's day-to-day connected to parking, to talk a little bit about registration process and employee parking. There he is. Hey, Ben. Find the mute, Ben. There we go.
Perfect. Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Ben Rogers, Director of Transportation Mobility. Yeah, Commissioner, we are fully aware of the parking rate, resident registration issues. One of the challenges we've had is that it was we released the program in early June, but a lot of people waited until July 1st to respond. So I think we had about 1,500 applications that came in over the holiday weekend. And with each one of those, we're going through and verifying residency. So we're looking at all the documents they have to provide. We've pulled our staff resources off of other projects and put them on this, so we're catching up. But a lot of them, we are reaching out to people when there's inconsistencies or questions we need to have, and then we are waiting for them to come back or respond to those concerns and questions that we have. So we've got all our resources on it. Right now, we're just fighting through the peak surge of the applications.
Okay, and then employee rates, Ben, can you just confirm that we do have employee rates in the areas really that they need it?
Yeah, so we do have permit programs across the city. We're working with Strategic Communications right now to release some marketing materials to make sure everyone's aware of that. In addition, we do have some areas across the city that have employee permit programs only, and we're working with some of the businesses to expand those programs into the areas that don't have permit offerings or have challenges with the current permit programs.
Okay, super. All right, thank you.
Commissioner, can I just chime in something here for a second? And Ben, while you're still on the line here, there's a lot of concern that we're having from some of the business owners on the beach in particular regarding the increased hourly rate for parking, especially as it relates to some of their employees that are now having to spend a lot of money to park in order to go to work. Do we have any interest in, considering that businesses are struggling as it is, do we have any interest as a commission to consider putting a moratorium on parking meters for the time being? I know some other cities are doing that to encourage people to patronize the businesses, especially those on the beach or even in other areas. Any thoughts on that, anybody?
I would be curious to see if we could apply for any relief from even the CARES funding or something like that to help, because I know our parking fund obviously is struggling a little bit. I do agree with you that we could, whatever we can do to help businesses, we should do, but being mindful that we also have our own issues as a city. But is there another bucket of money that we could provide for to cover that area? My thoughts.
Anybody else have any thoughts?
Yes, Mayor, thanks. I was going to discuss some of those issues when I came to my reports, but just to go into another item, I think we can also look at other alternatives. For instance, on the beach in particular, people try to sometimes just run up, grab a piece of pizza, grab something, take out. They shouldn't have to pay for an hour. Maybe just a short-term solution, 10 minutes, 15 minutes option, which I think would go a long way in relieving some of that price pressure that some people are feeling right now.
And what about employees? We have business on the beach that. Go ahead.
No, I think Ben's addressing that. My office has been in touch with his office as well about finding ways to do that with the permit parking, whether it's the Las Olas Garage, whether it's the North Beach area. whether it's the Sunrise Lane area. Yes, we definitely have to work on something like Commissioner Moritas mentioned in terms of employee rates, because someone that might work on the beach and make, $10 to $15 an hour, if they have to spend $4 an hour to park, well, that's not going to work. So yes, we have to work on that solution as well.
Yeah, Mayor, I think a short-term possibility just to consider would be employee parking free employee parking on the beach for the time being, given just the strain that employers and employees are facing right now.
Well, I'll add to that, because I've been speaking with city manager since we started this whole parking restructuring of the rates. And my biggest issue was the employees parking throughout the city. And it's the same as Steve mentioned, how much they make, and then they got to spend all this money in parking. So I'm willing to create a pass for employees of business owners in the city, not just the beach, solars, wherever they're parking meters, and we got these folks that are in the service industry that are struggling anyway because A, we're shutting them down, or B, we got them at 50%, 51% operations right now. So when they do come, if they're still part of the selection pool to come back to work, why not just let employees until we are over this COVID pandemic, get some sort of pass where they can park for free until we can figure this thing out, because we're talking about putting more stringent, or maybe not so stringent rules on violators, and some restaurants are closing down. So I would be in favor of employees, wherever there's city meters, being able to get a parking pass until we get past this pandemic and can reevaluate it.
So Ben, if we were to implement something like that, obviously there'd have to be restrictions. For example, could only be a certain number of employee passes per business. Because you could have one business that has 20 employees and they take up all the parking spaces to the detriment of patrons. So there'd probably have to be a limit on that. Number two, they can only be used while they're working. They can't use it, during other times of the day or the weekend, for example, as a get out of jail free card kind of thing, anywhere in the city. So Ben, do you think that's something that you can work out? Because I really feel that we're in a very unusual time in our city, and we should probably try to find some relief. And we can ask our city manager to work with you, Ben, to see if there are federal funds that might be able to subsidize this program, so we don't lose too much from our parking fund in order to be able to fulfill the bond obligations we have, as well as our income expectations. Is that something you think might be feasible, Ben?
Yeah, we can definitely look into it. I think I'll make a recommendation that we use some kind of technology system. So if we give a business a validation code that they would enter into the pay station, that would give the person a discount or free, or something along those lines. I'm just concerned that if we have every employee reach out to us to try to get a permit, that we won't A, be able to process it in a timely manner, or B, be able to figure out how to verify their employment without, asking for paychecks and things like that. So I definitely understand the direction, and I'll work with the city manager to provide some options, and we'll move forward with that.
And you might have a better idea. Oftentimes I find that we say things as policymakers, and as staff, you guys probably have better ideas you might want to propose. So think about it, since we're all talking on the same page in terms of doing something for some relief for the employees. I think each one of us have said this pretty much the same thing.
Okay, very good.
And I think, Mayor, especially considering that the county may have an action here which would further be challenging for employees to face financially. So.
Okay. Commissioner Moritas, do you have anything else?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. On a sad note, I'm actually hoping that tonight, before the evening meeting starts, we could do a moment of silence. Unfortunately, Brayson Plummer, who was a 7-year-old who was living in South Middle River, we had that unfortunate shooting, and he was shot in the head on the 2nd and then passed away over the weekend. You know, it's interesting. He passed away, and also Alan Becker passed away, and 2 different lives completely. One which never had a chance to really live his potential and enjoy life, and the other person, even though 74 is still quite young today, lived quite a full life. We had some issues with the dwelling that Brayson Plummer lived in South Middle River, although now there has been some reports, and there's just been conflicting reports. We don't even know if he lived there full time, but that was a rough situation. Since January, the police were called more than 80 times on that house. That's very difficult. That's still being investigated now, but he did pass away, and I'm sure we'll get reports on that later in terms of more investigation and how we can look at that issue, and maybe while Child Protection Services was not involved, or there are other options. It's tragic. It's very unfortunate that that happened. But I'd like if we could maybe remember him tonight with a moment of silence. Alan Becker, quite an amazing trailblazer in South Florida. For those of you that don't know, he was actually the youngest person ever elected to the Florida House of Representatives, 26 years old. He served 3 terms, but is probably best known with his partner, Gary Polikoff, who also passed away a few years ago, for instituting practically all of the condominium law in the state of Florida. And then the firm, Becker and Polikoff, going on to become a giant in terms of not just size of the law firm, but also influence with condominium associations and condo law. So maybe we could just remember those 2. That would be greatly appreciated. In terms of reports for District 2, I did meet with the South Middle River Civic Association General Meeting on the 23rd of June. 24th, met with Poinsettia Heights Civic Association. 25th, Lake Ridge Civic Association, all excellent meetings, very engaged. Wednesday, July 1, met with the Mass District and also the Victoria Park Civic Association. Thursday, July 2nd, had a special meeting with the South Middle River Civic Association and our city manager. That was the day that our 7-year-old passed away. So I'm sorry, was shot. And we met right away, sort of in an emergency session to air some of the issues that we're having there. Upcoming tomorrow night, we will again be meeting with the South Middle River Civic Association Board of Directors at 6:30 with the city manager. On the 9th, I'll be meeting with the CBA, Central Beach Alliance membership. Thursday, the 16th, we have a neighborhood presidents roundtable meeting for District 2, just to see where everybody is heading into the summer. Couple of comments. I'm hoping that we'll be able to schedule. I know we got a lot of emails about the possible agenda item for downtown master plan and character areas. I'm actually hoping that maybe we can meet with the planning and zoning board in the joint session, as we have done with many other boards and committees. I think that might do us all some good to talk about some of these issues that have not actually had a lot of airing publicly. Would like to also talk a little bit more about scooters going into the future. I've been reading that a lot of cities during the pandemic are looking at scooters because people don't necessarily want to get into an Uber. They don't want to do any kind of shared riding. They're looking at this as an easy way, as long as they're sanitized and we're taking care of them. I think maybe we need to revisit that, because it is an alternative for folks that maybe don't want to be near somebody and get to somewhere where they have to go rather quickly. I've also been hearing that some people feel that the Broward B cycles are not being cleaned as well as they could be and sanitized. If we could take a look at that. Parking rates, Commissioner Moritas already mentioned much of that, and then we had that discussion. But yes, I've been hearing the same thing in terms of registration issues, employees, and I think it'd be good if we can work all that out, as Ben said he would take a look at. Let's see, EMS, I know I mentioned this at the last meeting. I'm still getting a lot of concern from folks along the aisles and the Las Olas corridor. As we go towards our final steps with the budget, they are still very concerned about not having a substation or a satellite station because those response times are really, really poor. So I'd like to hear some more talk about that possibility, Chris, going forward. Paid parental leave. I actually mentioned this back in January after the federal government actually granted 12 weeks of paid parental leave. We said we would look at that, but I have not heard anything since then. And in the meantime, I have heard from, actually, I did receive a letter from the Teamsters about asking where that was, if we were looking at that any further. Chris, if maybe you could address that as well, even if it's just not the full 12 weeks that the federal government did, but understanding the situation we're in now, maybe looking at maybe just a portion of those 12 weeks, whether it's 6 weeks or so. I wanted to mention that with regards to the budget discussions we've had, and also with the Budget Advisory Board, I've heard from some more people about the Florida retirement system. There's a lot of talk that the rate hikes with the upcoming legislative session might be increasing for the Florida retirement system. Right now, we would be able to get in, I think, for 8.75% of salaries. I am concerned that maybe we do need to relook at that and lock in a rate now that's lower if we are really thinking of that. So, Chris, I'd like to hear a little bit more about that. And why not take a look? Because the delay, it looks like it's only saving us $700,000, but it might be much more costly if we're seriously thinking of doing this in the future. We've already talked about the other issues with regards to no COLA and only the merit increase, but I think we need to revisit the Florida retirement system for the upcoming fiscal year. Business improvement program, I have talked to staff, so I've gotten the answers for that in terms of when that program is going to roll out. Also would like to get some sort of status update on the Central City CRA rezoning project that was going gangbusters for a while. And then we didn't hear anything for such a long time. Last item, I am still getting so many complaints about lights out. It seems that lights get fixed and they work for a little while, whether it's on Las Olas or actually South Middle River. I'm hearing that the solar lights are really not working consistently. They might last till about 9, 10 o'clock, and then they're out the rest of the night when they really need them. But still getting so many complaints about lights and the intermittent service in terms of being on and off. That's about it from me, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. Commissioner McKenzie.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I have a couple of things. One is I want to go back to what the Vice Mayor spoke about with the 7-year-old death. And I know there were some 70+ calls for service at that home, but what I did not hear that there was ever child services involved or have been called to that home. I just think it's that house is a victim of its environment. Folks culturally don't understand, those folks that live there, and probably called because it was uncomfortable to them. A lot like what we're dealing with this incident in Minneapolis with the culture of policing. So I think, and I've been talking with our police chief, I've been talking with the city manager. Since COVID-19 and the pandemic, our crime stats have gone down, but gun violence has risen. I've seen this across the country. So I don't know how it relates. We've been talking every Wednesday for about 16 weeks about gun violence. Maybe we have a moment of silence for gun violence in addition to the names that he mentioned. But I also want to add another name to that list, and that is we lost Walter Mickey Hinton was funeralized today, and if we can have a moment of silence for him. I'm sure all of you know him. He was the president of Doers HOA. He was the first of many things here in the city of Fort Lauderdale. He was 84 years old. He has done a lot for this city. We all probably recently remember him from the Lincoln lawsuit of the environmental issue we had. He was the one that spearheaded that. He was involved in the first LA Lee YMCA. He was involved with Saving the Woodlawn Cemetery. He was involved with many other civic engagements. He served as an appointee for the previous mayor and this mayor, I believe, on some boards, he and his wife. And he's just one of the sons of Fort Lauderdale. So if we can just remember him at that time too, and probably take a moment, I think, for all the things that are going on worldwide, from COVID to the police culture that folks are trying to change, and also pray for our officers at the same time. Just have a moment. Maybe we could do 8 minutes and 49 seconds for everybody. I don't know how we do it, Mayor. I leave it in your hands, but I just wanted to speak to that. There's no disrespect to Vice Mayor's comments, but that 7-year-old child really captured my attention, and it was around the country since that shooting, there was 4 other kids from 8 to 3 years old that suffered gunshots. So gun violence should be what we're thinking about as we move forward. The fireworks at Carter Park were wonderful. And maybe that's a new way of how we do things. And it might be a cost savings, from what we've done in the past. But my community definitely enjoyed it. And I heard good things from the other commissioners, vice mayor and mayor. I want to go back because I didn't have a chance to speak to it, Mayor, when you all talked about the meeting with the mayors and the county administrator, possibly breaking news later on in terms of what they want to do moving forward. And I heard you say that we really don't want to close down our businesses or violate them with citations or fines of what we've been doing. And then in another breath, I heard you say we need to hire more code officers. So we can't be half pregnant. We can't, I know we all agreed to open up the city. I know things went in a different direction in terms of what's happening, but I still think we have to look at the behavior of the residents, our people. Some people refuse to wear masks. I refuse to go out in public settings. I go out as least as I possibly can because I want to do what I can to help from spreading the virus to anyone else. And I just see a lot of careless folks. And if we want to keep this city open, I don't know how we're going to do that by hiring more code officers and enforcing more. And then we're trying to do a moratorium on parking, and we're trying to help the employees get back to work. I mean, we just got to figure out a different way of doing it. I don't have the answers. I just wanted to get it out there because I hear you and other mayors speaking about what we're going to do, but the one thing that concerns me the most is the pecking order. And the pecking order is the state, which our governor has refused to do anything beyond nothing. And the county has said we're going to do these things. And I think we can be more restrictive and not less restrictive. Am I correct with that, Alan?
Correct. We can be more restrictive and not less restrictive. That's absolutely correct.
So, I mean, I don't know if us shutting down and finding business is the answer, or I never wanted to open in the first place, but I went with the consensus. We're here now. I just hope and pray and wish we could figure out the right thing, but I don't think getting more code officers is going to help us if we're really trying to keep our businesses afloat. So that's just a comment. But what is happening is real. The stats are there. And I also want to just say to those who didn't know, the Urban League testing site closed and we moved it to Lincoln Park. And we have had record crowds and some days where we've ran out of tests. And we have a big parking problem over there now, but it's a good thing, I think. And it's not just the folks from the neighborhood, it's folks from throughout the city. I don't know if this site is just more inviting than the Urban League was, but we have had record crowds since we opened last week at that particular testing site. So
Commissioner, what's the turnaround time there? Do you have any information? How
Well,
long it takes?
I got tested on June 26th,
Yeah.
and I just got my test results before I came in for this conference, and I'm negative, but it takes a long time when it says it should be 24 hours on all of your papers. But somehow or another, I think if we need to juggle funds or resources, maybe we need to talk about getting faster results, because imagine this, I get tested June 26th. It's the 7th day. I don't know if I'm really COVID free because I left there getting a test and nervous, but I've since been exposed to the world. So if you don't get quicker turnarounds, I mean, how do we really get a handle on what's going on? And I'm happy to see my results, but I probably need to take another test.
I hear you. Unfortunately, it's the state that runs all of that, so no matter what we try to do, other than to just encourage them to increase their funding to have more lab people. But your frustration is shared by a lot of people. So I was just curious if there was any quicker turnaround time at Lincoln Park.
No, our lines are longer than what they were saying today, because I go by every day and monitor it, is that there's no lines at Holiday Park. Go over there and you can get through fast.
Well, because you have to go by appointment. You can make appointments here as well. You can walk up. You can, but you don't. I don't think you have. Do you have to have an appointment at Lincoln Park? I don't think so.
No, but you can get one.
You can't get one.
No, you can.
Okay.
You can get an appointment.
You can.
Walk up as well.
Okay. Yeah, because there are no lines at Holiday Park but try to get. Let me tell you something. When I tried to get an appointment, I tried to get an appointment at Holiday Park and ran busy for 2 days. So
this morning,
it's very different.
This morning, the testing site and our police officers are saying, go to Holiday Park. They'll take you with no waiting. That's what they announced this morning.
Okay, good to know. A
So,
good employee.
Yeah, so I mean, that's all I really have, but I wish we could just get our fingers on what we're gonna do in terms of enforcement, no enforcement, and every day you see something different on the news, whether it's the county mayor, this mayor, or our other 30 mayors. And when you look at, in hindsight, you look at, Bertha Henry makes the call at the end of the day. So I guess we have to follow it, but at the same time, if we're going to look to how do we move this thing forward, it's again, it goes back to anything we've ever done with ordinances, whether it's vacation rentals, whether it's sober homes, it's the behavior of people.
It is the behavior of people. You're right. It's going to be personal responsibility, and that's what we need to encourage. And I don't know how to do it. We can do it with more code enforcement officers. We can do it with more public service announcements. The culture has to change. People cannot, be so willy-nilly about this disease because it's running fast and loose through our city. So, anyway, do you have any other comments you'd like to make?
I think that's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, great. Thank you. Commissioner Sorensen.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. I go to the state website regularly and track, and I like looking by zip code and so forth of COVID-19 rates. I just may not be using the tools properly. Do we have a City of Fort Lauderdale cumulative total to track cases in the city?
Have that?
I could try to answer that. I don't think so, is the answer. There's all these different dashboards now that are popping up, Commissioner. We started with the one that was Department of Health backed, and then the state took an action in the person's employment that had created that dashboard, and now a new one has popped up that apparently she has continued to gather data and put into a different dashboard. On that second one that has popped up, which is not the Department of Health, there is a tab that seeks to differentiate by city number of cases, but it comes with a disclaimer that this is generated by zip code, and so it's probably not a perfect science. So that's the only place I've been able to see that city is tracked as quote city. I still think the zip code is the best data set when it comes to geographic location.
So we could use the zip codes and compile what we think might be very close and use the same disclaimer. Am I correct for that assumption?
The problem, Robert, is that you take Fort Lauderdale and you take, say, a zip code 33304, which is where I live. Well, that also includes part of Wilton Manors. You could take 33308. That includes Oakland Park as well as Fort Lauderdale. It's not an exact science. That's the
But I
problem.
agree with it. But the last meeting, I asked the city manager because they said that the Black community had in particular, my district had the highest rate. So when you look at the zip codes that are in my district, they cross into Lauderdale, they cross into other areas as well.
Right.
So how can you accurately put out that kind of information when the information is not accurate? So I think it's a great question that Ben asked. I asked it a couple of meetings ago, and I was assured that, those stats were correct because it came from the state. And we know about trust in the state. But by the same token, I just still think, there's a lot of misinformation out there. I want people to get tested. I want people to get the best information they possibly can get. And I guess according to what the manager's telling us, Commissioner Sorensen, we really can't get an accurate count.
Yeah.
Well,
and
you've seen the dashboard, Commissioner Sorensen, you've seen the dashboard map where they do colorations like red, blue, light blue, that kind of thing.
Yes.
That helps us at least see where our city lies within the county. I guess that's done by zip code, but it gives us somewhat of an indication as to any progress or lack of progress we may be making in trying to reduce the number of infections. You've seen that map, haven't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, and that's
I think
where,
that's-
Mayor, I just need more data to be an effective policymaker on this. I mean, I have weekly calls with epidemiologists and pulmonologists on this and so forth, but I just feel like collectively we should have a health expert that meets with us every time we're meeting. Say, okay, for example, why in 33316 is there such a high infection rate? We haven't talked about that.
Where's
What is that?
16?
That's a very dark red spot on the east side of
Correct.
Fort Lauderdale. So why
Yeah,
is
but it's not in my district. Like they're saying I got the highest
Right.
yeah, I
deaths.
agree with you. I
So-
agree with you.
Right.
So, where's that? I agree with you.
But
How-
the mayor had a medical guy with him the first time he started talking about that testing
Right.
in Tallahassee.
So
Remember?
I know. And the mayor, this is where I'd really like to have, someone with us that can help, because Broward County is not representative of Fort Lauderdale. And so we may need to be doing things differently than Broward County.
Well, let me ask you something, Ben.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna cut you off, but
Yeah, go ahead.
with all that the mayor started when he started talking about that test early on, we had a medical person on the podium with them. Then I asked, and now you're asking, and we're being told there's no science to it. And when you look at every news media outlet, every doctor is giving his or her medical opinion on what they think. So there's no science anywhere. So how do we go out and say we're going to select this skill set person or persons to help us dissect information that's not accurate?
Well,
Yeah.
I think, Robert, I think the information is accurate, but I think to answer Commissioner Sorensen's question, this contact tracing has very limited success, and because it's just time delayed and no one really remembers where they were, and But I agree with you guys. I really think that we could benefit from city-specific data that tells us a little bit more about our own situation. So after our meeting today, I'm going to contact the governor's office and see if they can give us some direction on how we can get some city-specific data that would help us understand, are we making progress, are we not making progress, and where can we do better? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that'd be helpful, Mayor. I mean, just one final point on that is, why is the infection rate so high in 3316? So we don't know. I've talked to experts, and one explanation is, well, hey, Broward Health Medical Center is located in 33316, so that could be the resultant, cause of this high number. But then other doctors are saying, well, no, it's where you test positive. It's not necessarily where you're brought to. So they're just these unanswered questions.
So I'm sorry. Say that again.
So
where you test positive, so are they doing it by the testing sites?
So so I haven't gotten a clear answer on that, Commissioner.
Because I didn't have a testing site when they came up with these numbers in my district. I didn't have one.
Well, that's the point. That's the point. You didn't have a testing site, and yet 33311 was a hotspot, for example.
So they say. I never believed it. I never believed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
All right. So
Don't they go by
don't
they go by the people's addresses when they take the test?
Yeah, it's your address that they
Yes, of course it is.
But I know, Vice Mayor, but something's not adding up correctly. If I was the hotspot, did all my people move to 33316?
Right.
I don't know. I'm not following the real estate trends.
Not real estate.
Okay.
We're talking about testing and what they're putting out in terms of information. That's all we're saying.
So let me follow up with our health department officials and with the governor's office, see if I can get anything out of them. All right.
And and the jail too. I mean, the jail is in 331. So who's that having an impact? Okay.
I guess that's an address also. Okay.
Right, but the jail's on the water.
Isn't the jail, is that 33301?
That is.
I think it's one.
So.
Is it 01?
I think it's 01. I'm not sure. I think it's 01.
Is it 01?
Okay.
Gotcha.
So.
Okay.
Great.
Is that it?
No. So oh yeah, I got more. Just warming up. All right. Let's see, the scooters. So I think Vice Mayor raised the scooters. Maybe others talked about that as well. Chris, you and I have talked about the scooters, and Chris, you last time you and I talked about this, you had a valid concern in my mind, which is, hey, how are we going to sanitize the scooters and so forth? What any change or new info you're getting on that, Chris?
There really hasn't been, and frankly, if we're going the opposite direction, I don't know that now is the right time to introduce scooters back into our city, but I would be very interested in a sanitizing plan if anybody had one to offer up. I guess I should turn to Ben Rogers too, because Transportation and Mobility is the home department for scooters. Ben, have you heard from the scooter industry any more than I have?
Yeah, Chris, we've had biweekly meetings with the scooter operators. So when we stopped the program, we were in the process of onboarding the highest ranked applicant pool because the permits expired. So when we resume, we'll have to go through that process of onboarding, issuing permits, and getting them back in. They all have concerns about the permit fees and upfront cost to get back in the market. We're looking for some kind of payment plan where they can pay the permit fee over the year. And they all did address some of the recommendations they would have on sanitizing and reduced fleet size and things of that nature.
And Chris, are the B cycles, are the bicycles operational, being used right now, these rental?
Yes, I believe they are.
If we're
How
not
do they
gonna
qualify?
we cannot.
How do they
allow
qualify and scooters don't?
Okay, so I think I heard the mayor's question because he's in the same room. And Commissioner Sorensen, I didn't hear your question. Ben, the question is, have we had any discussion on the B-cycles versus scooters?
Yeah, the B-cycles are an agreement that we have with Broward County, and we have reached out to them to figure out their point of view on that service and how it's being provided. They incorporated as part of their transit system, and because they didn't stop their transit routes, they are still operating. So we have had conversations with them. If you'd like to defer those conversations to cease operations or to change, we can definitely have those conversations.
Yeah, I mean, my view is if we're
You just froze. Dan, you just froze up. We lost Dan.
Well,
Lose him or everybody?
no, I think we just lost
I don't know, looks like it.
Yeah, he's frozen.
Commissioner Sorensen, and it looks like he just dropped off. While we're waiting on him to come back, I do have some open questions I know from Vice Mayor Glassman that answered. You want me to go through his list and talk and bring Laura and Susan to the discussion about the parental leave and FRS, and do you want to do that now, or do you want to wait and
Wait till Ben is,
wait and let Ben finish? Okay, all right.
because Ben should have the benefit of hearing what you have to say.
Okay, he's back?
There he is. He's connecting.
I don't know what happened. So my point was, if we're concerned about surface transmission with scooters, we should be equally concerned with the bikes, and we should have either both or neither.
Good point. So, Ben, how do you respond to that?
Yeah, I think one of the major differences between the two operations is that the scooters are dockless, they're scattered all over the place, and hard to have a centralized clean point, where the bikes are in the dock stations, have a very fixed location, and can kind of be on a schedule for cleaning.
Is
Well,
someone
they
cleaning
do-
the bikes after every use, Ben?
I'll have to check with them. I know they do have a sanitation program. They've stepped up their efforts during COVID, but I'm not sure if it's every ride or if it's on
Okay.
a certain hour basis or something of that nature. But I can follow up.
Yeah, if you could, I'd just like to hear more about that. Okay, great, thank you. Chris, I'm assuming are you gonna talk about our police department and so forth? Because there's several things I want to touch on.
Yes, I will give you an update on that, either at this meeting if time allows, or during our evening meeting.
Okay, because I'd like to, Mayor, I'd like to have a discussion around that, and so is that, okay, great.
You can do that.
Okay, Alan, you and I have broached this subject with you, this idea of banning foam, styrofoam, single use on city property. If you could just share with us that possibility of banning something like that.
Not there.
Generally, as you know, we're preempted from banning them citywide. But on our particular properties or pursuant to contracts with our vendors, we could. The point I had raised with you, however, is that the CDC guidelines are encouraging single-use materials, whether it be plastics, utensils, whatever it may be. So it would be a little difficult at this time during COVID to delve into banning certain products that were, on the flip side, encouraging folks to use. So we can look into those particular products, but at this time, it probably would be difficult to do that. I mean, it's certainly, if the commission wants to do that, we can, but we are encouraging folks, as all the orders as well as the CDC guidelines provide, of using single-use plastics and single-use disposables.
So, Mayor, this is something I'm interested in, and I think we should do it. We should at least explore it. And if we absolutely need something single-use for city property, on city property, we can use something that's more easily decomposes, like a paper single-use product or so forth.
Well, I agree with you. I think styrofoam is is really a menace to our environment. And, styrofoam cups and other materials, I think, should not be permitted in our city. So,
It would be only in parks or by our vendors. We can't ban it in the city.
okay, so parks
Yep.
and by our vendors. So I think that's a lot to be able, if we can at least attempt that. I would agree with you if you want. Is there a consensus in the commission to move forward and instruct the city attorney to come up with an ordinance in that regard?
I'm not in agreement with it only because look at all the things that we're asking our staff to enforce. I mean, I think if we do an educational thing on this, just encourage folks not to do it. I think people are just so environmentally conscious right now. People are. Encourage them not to do it before we, issue another ticket because you got a styrofoam cup I think we could take styrofoam out of our own facilities ourselves. Just encourage folks not to do it. Again, just like the stuff that goes in the ocean. It doesn't get to the ocean without a human being taking it to the ocean. We're talking about human behavior again, and I don't want to just put another law in the books just to have
Mayor,
because somebody's
also,
complaining. So I just want to finish before
Right.
you chime in. So you asked for my opinion. I'm not in agreement with it. But I'll just be the minority vote, and I'm okay with that. But at least I said my piece about not putting any more burdens on our staff or having to hire more resources in these economically tough times. I think we have better things that we could be doing than trying to enforce styrofoam not being in play in our city.
Commissioner Moritas?
yeah, I'm also concerned about different sports teams, maybe like the Inter Miami or the Panthers or the Aquatic Center, Swimming Hall of Fame. How would that affect those businesses that are also will be operating on our property too? I don't know. I probably am not in favor at this point of an ordinance, but I do agree with Commissioner McKenzie that an educational campaign and being socially responsible is valuable. That's my opinion.
Vice Mayor, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yes, actually, I would be in favor of us looking at what we are able to do without being preempted by the state.
Would you be in favor of?
Sorry.
Would you be in favor of asking the city attorney to come up with an ordinance with regard to regulating and prohibiting the use of styrofoam on city property?
Yes.
All right. So, yes, Ben?
Great. Okay. So sorry, Mayor. So we're going to at least explore that, city attorney.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'd
great.
be in favor of that
Thanks.
also. Okay.
Last
Anything
thing,
else?
Mayor. Well, I got two last things. One is just we've had a lot of wonderful leaders pass, and another one is Marianne Gray. I know, Heather knows. I'm sure everyone knows her, knew her. So just a great leader of our Fleet Week and Navy Days, and just part of all those efforts. And she passed away, and just want to recognize her and celebrate her legacy here as well, Mayor. And then
So tonight at our meeting, we'll assemble the names of the people that have been spoken about this afternoon. And I'd be happy to take that moment and show their respects for them.
great. And then Mayor, I'm forgetting if we've talked about this. It's largely a federal issue, but I want to bring it up just because I think if we haven't already talked about it, Dixie Highway, the naming of Dixie Highway. I know we're limited in what we're able to do, but I think it's time to take a fresh look at that and consider taking a stand on that name and seeking a possible name change.
All right, so what are you proposing?
I guess first, just a discussion. I don't know if folks are interested in kind of talking about that or not, but we could take any number of positions or on this and communicate with the state and federal.
I'm not sure which forum we should do that in. Obviously, we want to have community outreach there. I know that the word Dixie has a connotation and association with the South and the Confederacy and all that represents to many people. So I've been getting inquiries regarding that as well from various neighbors. I'm not sure where we should start with that, because even though Dixie is mostly in Middle River Terrace, I'm not sure if they really have the province to make decisions in this regard. I think it would have to be a citywide thing. Maybe this is something we should present to the Council of Civic Associations and ask them to discuss it and bring back to us a recommendation. Does that make sense to you?
Yep, I'm good with that.
Okay, maybe we can do that. All right, very good.
Thank you.
All right, so I just have a couple things. I brought this up before, and I'm not quite sure where we need to go, but we really are falling behind on the census count. And we need to, grease up our wheels here on something. I don't know whether we should start, maybe that where we used to put banners across US 1, start putting up big banners. During my meetings with Workforce One, we've talked about, it's now called something else though. What's it called now?
Complete count?
No. With Mason Jackson.
A career source.
Career Source, excuse me. In Career Source, I brought up at our meeting, a couple of meetings now, where we should have census days at various businesses, big corporations, small businesses. Everybody should just take 30 minutes out in their day, and everybody go on their computer and sign themselves and their families up, their households up. We are falling behind badly, and we cannot ignore it. And everyone, some people talk about it, others don't even think it's an issue. But I'm eager to hear anybody's thoughts on how we can best go forward and try to, we don't have neighborhood association meetings like we used to with the same frequency. It's just, I just implore you in all of your interactions with your neighbors that this should be the number one thing on your presentations, if possible, to try to get people in action to participate in the census count. So whatever you folks can do would be really appreciated.
I have one comment to that. What?
Go ahead.
There's a Facebook page, actually, maybe I think it's the City of Fort Lauderdale that put it out, that it does list the neighborhoods and how many people have completed the response. So it lists it all. So actually, my staff were discussing a competition we could have between different neighborhoods, just trying to get them to get to a certain percentage. But we kind of got stuck to where I really didn't know what we could offer as a reward for people, if they, whatever neighborhood won. So I don't know. I think we can, who's monitoring that Facebook page or at least compiling it? Sorry, I have dog problems. And is there something we can do for, a neighborhood or the neighborhood kind of that has the highest percentage, or maybe there's a threshold, if you hit 80%, you get blank, or or recognition or something. I don't know. I think we could use that, some kind of competition.
Well, I don't know the answer to that. We do have a census advisory board. Maybe Chris, we can ask you to deliver these messages to them, but we need to move fast very quickly, and whatever we can do to come up with ideas. The contest is interesting. We can put it on Nextdoor. But not everybody is a subscriber to Nextdoor, but it certainly reaches a lot of people. So,
Mayor, I'm assuming we've already done this, but engaging the council again of civic associations. I mean, someone mentioned to me HOA, kind of each HOA has a captain, census captain, or I don't know if that's something we've already done.
To update the commission, because if we could go to Hal Barnes just for a second, I'd like to have him update on some of the activities that are.
Hal, what are your thoughts on this?
With census, I know we've handed out, gosh, almost 20,000 door hangers. It must be at this point, and other things.
Yes, sir. Hal Barnes, Neighbor Support. We started a campaign of door-to-door door hangers. We've targeted 20,000. We've passed out about 17,000 to date. We've been in all 4 commission districts. We've been in over 45 neighborhoods. So that was our most recent initiative. We've also done bus benches. We've done ads. We've worked with the Council of Civic Associations. We're working with the individual neighborhoods. We're doing flyers at all the food distribution events and any other kind of distribution event. So we're targeting a number of different topics, and we're targeting a wide variety of individuals. The numbers have increased slightly, but not as dramatically we'd like to see, Mayor, as you pointed out. But we're looking for any and all ideas. I can talk to the council again about other options working through the neighborhood, but they're actively involved in the census as we are.
Okay. You know, should we make it a requirement that if you're in that, you know, when we have our food distribution on Thursday, do we make it a requirement that they show evidence that they've signed up for the census? I mean, I don't know how else to incentivize people.
I don't think you can do that. I mean, we can look
You
into
can do
it. I
what?
don't know that you can reward someone.
I think we just keep moving forward because
What's that,
I've had neighborhood support at my meetings when we were doing them. I've also carried that momentum into any communications I send out. I have ground crews out here now in another facet, you know, knocking on the neighbors' doors and still keeping the census out front there because it is a very important issue in terms of how we get funding. And I just think we keep, I mean, every time you get in a press conference, a couple of times I heard you mention the census. So just keep doing that and keep sending out with our newsletters. We're talking about it now, so people are listening to us. We just keep talking. I think Hal's department is doing a great job because they helped me at a lot of my HOAs, when we could get the information out. And the HOAs are still meeting, at least in my district, via Zoom, and they're still talking about the census.
So for those who are listening at today's meeting, go to, what's the website? Census.gov. CENSUS.gov. It's .gov or .org?
I think it's .org.
I think it's 2020 in there.
All right, we're going to find out right now.
.2020census.gov.
2020census.gov. 2020census.gov. Just take 10 minutes, go to the website, sign up yourself and your family and your household. Okay, thank you. One of the commissioners talked about meeting up with planning and zoning and going forward with the downtown master plan. I agree. We need to have a joint workshop sometime during the break. I know I don't want to interfere with the breaks, people taking vacations and so forth. I'm going to take some time off as well. So do we want to do it like towards close to our next meeting? So at least we've left enough of a gap during the break to allow you to take a vacation. Anyone have any ideas as to what's the best time for your calendars? Does it matter? Is anyone going anywhere?
I think when we come back,
think-
Mayor, because from what I understood from Anthony Fajardo was that it was going to planning and zoning to be vetted. I think let them
Right.
vet it and then come back to us after they vetted it, and we sit down and share ideas.
So maybe we could have it workshop the same day we have our next meeting in August.
Mayor,
It might be too much.
We're on the 18th and the planning and zoning board is on the 19th.
Mayor.
It's on the 9th.
Oh.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think it needs a little space. The Planning and Zoning Board meets on August 19th, so I don't think we
Yeah,
can
so-
wait till the 18th.
Yeah, let them vet it, come out of there, and then we figure out our calendars the next time we meet.
Well, I'm
Okay,
looking
so
at it. I'm looking at it the other way, but that's okay.
the meeting, are you thinking that maybe we should meet, Vice Mayor, are you thinking we should meet before their next meeting or after?
I think before, actually, because then I think that we all get a sense of the direction we want to go in, then let them take it to whatever the recommendation is after they meet with us. But I think there's just so much going on here now with boundaries and upzoning and downzoning and codifying downtown master plan or not. I just think that we need to have more of a discussion than just simply they meet on the 19th and then we meet after that with them. I just think it behooves us to meet sometime in the beginning of August, maybe a couple of weeks before they meet, and then because we meet on the 18th, they meet on the 19th. That's just my opinion. I just think we need more time.
Well, I can't meet at the beginning of August. Hold on a second. Let's just take a minute and look at our calendars.
Well, do they have to meet on with planning and zoning that date? Can we push planning and zoning meeting back to September?
There's one scheduled every month.
There's one scheduled every month.
Right. I think we should push it back. I mean, we're in I just think we're in a heightened state of pandemic. Folks are gone during the summer. I think this is important enough. We should just give it space and time for planning and zoning, and then for us a joint workshop.
I'll only caution for the commission to have a workshop with P&Z before they have their meeting on the subject matter, because they are an advisory board to the commission, not the other way around. We wouldn't want the commission to unduly influence.
So Alan, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Alan.
Yes.
Let me ask you a question. Have you ever dealt with folks that are on P&Z that are going around speaking against development?
The issue has been brought to my attention.
I know it's been brought to your attention. What are we going to do about people sitting on quasi-judicial boards, in particular something like planning and zoning, and they advocate against development, and yet and still we're trying to do a serious look at, this commission is, codifying and looking at the master plan. But if someone's saying they don't want development, how can they be objective to really trying to figure out what we need to do with our downtown and where do we go from here? So I just want to go on the record again that anyone that's doing that on those boards, I'm not calling any names, needs to be dealt with according to our own rules and ordinances.
Well, there should be no advocacy outside of the confines of the board, especially on a regulatory or statutory board, such as planning and zoning. They are the local planning body. The quintessential guarantee that you have before going to the planning and zoning board or any planning agency is an impartial hearing of your projects or whatever else may be before the board. And if there's advocacy outside, that jeopardizes that impartiality, and so that it does bring up procedural due process concerns. And frankly, that in Florida, the standard typically, if you're going to sit on one of those boards, and I'm not talking necessarily about maybe a more, for lack of a better term, minor board, but a regulatory board in this regard, that you can't wear two hats. If you choose to be on one of these boards, you really, because they're typically mostly quasi-judicial, and that impartiality has to be there. So if someone walks into the PhD knowing the position of various members based on outside advocacy, then there are some procedural due process issues and impartiality issues.
Well, would it be improper to have a workshop for their 19th meeting?
Different issue, but I would have concerns about having that, because again, the issue is supposed to go to planning and zoning. They're supposed to vet it and then give you, the city commission, recommendation. Here it would almost be collaboratively working.
Yeah, but Alan,
and almost suggest to them what you're looking for.
But Mayor
Yes.
and Alan, I do not want to shy away from my question. If I need to take my question after the mayor speaks to what he's talking about in scheduling, I still want us to deal with objectivity when it comes. It's just too important for us to just have someone who says no to everything. And we all know what I'm talking about. I don't have to call anybody's names out. And I'm okay with doing this, even though I don't want to do it. But if we're going to do it, let's do it right. And I think a lot of folks will listen to what we have to say and our advice and things of that nature. But when someone's just totally against development, And we know there's people, we've seen it time and time again. We just saw it recently with the project over in Victoria Park. I won't name that project, but we cannot have that type of behavior if we're the policymakers.
Mayor,
So, yes, sir.
I just want to make a comment to Commissioner McKenzie. You know, for many years, I sat on Planning and Zoning Board, and I always wondered the opposite. I always wondered why so many people on planning and zoning were so connected to the development community in so many different ways. And you could put any project in front of them and they'd never be a no. They were connected through other vendors, through other contracts. They worked with developers. They definitely had a financial stake in projects passing because then they got jobs working on them. So, you know, I think it cuts both ways, interestingly enough, and might have to be looked at from that perspective. But I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware that for so many years, I always just wondered the opposite of what Commissioner McKenzie just expressed. Thank you.
And I think you did a stellar job when you were there. I mean, I never heard you running around, putting out fires and don't do this, don't do that. You had your historic perspective, but I think you vetted things very, very well. And I commend you for that. But I see some of the behavior now. To me, it's just, in my opinion, just doesn't suit what we're trying to do in building the best city we can build.
I
understand.
Let me just say this. So based on what Alan has said, it's best that we not meet jointly until after they've had their meeting. But I would encourage you all to meet with Anthony Fajardo and people in his department to make your recommendations as to the plan that will be submitted to the Planning and Zoning Board. That you can do, and that I guess is going to have to be the pathway to bring this process to closure. So let's use that time that we have to meet with staff and share our ideas, and then hopefully they can call together the ideas, come together with a single plan and present it to planning and zoning, and then we can discuss it after that. All right.
And again, I still want an answer to my question at some point in time.
What is that? What is that, Robert?
Are we going to deal with people on these boards that are definitely against the mission of the board? So, I mean, I don't think, and for Steve to point out my statement and opine the opposite, that's fine. He's entitled to that, and I'm entitled to my opinion as well. But we've been sitting here. This commission is the one that basically sanctioned this process to move forward. That's fine. It's been 3 years. I want to get to the end, but I also want to make sure that we don't have folks that are advocating against development sitting on planning and zoning. That board. That's not the definition of that board. Maybe there's another board.
Talking about. I'm not clear who we're talking about and what's happening. Sorry, what are the specifics? Who is this?
Alan can speak to it because he was supposed to when we brought it up 3 months ago. Not so much supposed to. He was going to look into it and see who. And I called out some names, and I don't want to do that now. I'm talking about a process now. The process just needs to be transparent, and it needs to be vetted by P&Z, not someone saying, I don't want any development. And there's some people on there that won't vote for any development. So we probably know who they are. I know that none of my appointments are like that. So maybe we can do our own self-examinations to get to the answer that I'm trying to put out there. It's not so much pointing out people, it's the process. You can't do it. It's against the law. It's like us with the sunshine. If we get caught, it's a violation. It's an ethics violation. So I'm talking about people being held accountable for raising their hands, saying, I swear to do something, and then they do the opposite of the oath that they have taken. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. All right, your point is well taken.
Mayor,
all right, I have no,
just for
last point.
Just for clarification, so I can be adequately prepared. I have met with Anthony already, but I do want to meet with him again. So P&Z will discuss this on August 19th. And then did you say we're having a joint meeting with them, maybe in September, that first meeting of September, and then it comes to the commission for us to vote? When does it come to us and when do we have the joint meeting? A little timeline would be helpful.
Well, I'm not sure what the purpose of the joint meeting will be after they've already met and voted. So we could talk about other things we could talk about projects, we can talk about, you know, anything but this. So, so if that's the timeline that we have to respect, which is letting them have their meeting and then we vote on it, either approving their recommendation or not approving their recommendation.
What was their
I
recommendation?
don't see,
I don't have one yet.
I'm sorry?
I
And
think
what
we,
was the recommendation? The mayor just said there was a vote. What was the vote, Mayor? What was that? What was that all about?
so I'm saying they will vote on it on August 19th.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So,
Well,
so
they already did vote on the downtown master plan.
That's what I
They
thought.
They
That's
already
what I
did.
well, they voted on the plan as it was. If they come back with a modified plan, then they got to revote.
But
And
they
I
voted
would
on the plan.
encourage,
They
There's
voted
some
on the plan?
addition- they voted on a plan that was submitted to them, and everybody, from what I saw at the meeting, everybody had their own idea as to what the plan should look like. There wasn't any particular consensus, but the final.
What was the vote?
Final,
What was the
the
vote?
vote was against approving it.
Yeah, what was it,
Everybody had a
7-2?
different,
What was
but
the vote,
everybody had a
for or
different
against?
reason.
right.
Okay, everybody had a different reason for voting against it. So.
Right.
Okay, okay.
So hopefully, if we can refashion plan, try to address all the concerns that the people have had, maybe we can get more of a consensus on the planning and zoning board. So, having said that, I encourage you to meet with staff and get your 2 cents in, and hopefully there'll be some additional outreach in the community, which has also been a problem, and we can finally get this thing and put this to bed.
So
All
then,
right.
Mayor,
Anything
just,
else?
yeah, just to be
Last thing,
clear,
because we got to
so,
move on to a CRA meeting.
yeah, so I would suggest that we have, so put the master plan on the agenda for like September 15th city commission meeting.
What
Well,
day?
keep in mind,
September
that's going to be a budget, that's going to be a budget meeting, if I'm not mistaken. It's going to be a heavy meeting.
Okay, then the next one, October 6th.
So why don't we use that as a target date, October
Yeah.
6th?
Perfect.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay. All right, is there anything else? Do you want to make it now? Chris will now give the city manager's report.
So let me update on a couple topics that were open from Vice Mayor Glassman. And we have 2 agenda items on this agenda, then a CRA agenda, so I'll probably do the police discussion as a part of the evening meeting. But let me go to, let's see here, we talked about downtown master plan, joint meeting, scooters, B-cycle. Paid parental leave. Let me bring Laura Reese to the meeting to talk about parental leave and our research there. And then Susan Grant as it relates to Florida retirement system and what that $700,000 represents in savings as it relates to general fund, but not total plan design. So Laura, are you there?
Yes, Chris, I'm here. So as it relates to paid parental leave, we did look at the actual leave taken related to baby bonding in fiscal year 2019, because we looked at the last year of actuals. And what we found was, I actually was going to pull it up. What we found is that most folks were paid for all of the time they took off. And so as a government, we can allow folks to accumulate and roll leave from year to year. And that's what we do. So you can have a sick bank that follows you from year to year. So for the leave that was taken, only around 8% of the leave was not paid. And most of the leave that is taken, as you might expect, is public safety personnel. So that's general fund personnel. So if we were to give an extra 4 weeks of paid leave to that group, we would need to come up with around $600,000 in funding. All the way up to 12 weeks, it would be around $1.5 million in funding. So we could provide that 12 weeks or 8 weeks or 4 weeks of leave in addition to the leave that we allow for to roll from year to year, but there would be a cost to that, and it would primarily be general fund supported if we use 2019 as an example. Question on that?
Okay, Laura, thank you for that explanation. I know you sent me a kind of a working document that maybe we can work up into a commission memo and deliver it to the commission so that we can let them have an opportunity to digest that research that we did.
Yeah,
Chris and Laura, what would 4 weeks be of paid leave? 1/3 of the federal policy.
4 weeks would be around, I think it was around $550,000, and about 90% of that would be in the general fund.
Okay,
And-
yeah, I just don't know how the federal government has a paid parental leave and we don't, but it's
Yes,
just,
we absolutely need one, Vice Mayor. I completely
yeah, well,
agree.
it's why I brought it up in January. I don't see how we can't do that.
Correct.
I
Where do
concur.
we get the money?
We would have to, at this point, we'd have to find something that if it's general fund supported, we just have to find something that we choose not to do instead.
Yeah, we're already short millions of dollars. I just don't know if this is the year to implement this program. That's the problem.
Well, I don't think next year is gonna be any easier.
Well, well, if we can come up with we'd have to eliminate another program to implement this one.
So keep in mind what we do later tonight is simply to adopt a millage rate for the budget. So the budgets are presented with it, but we're not adopting the budget tonight. So any of these ideas now I can work on over the summer and bring back a recommendation to the commission.
Well, let me ask you a question, City Manager. Vice Mayor said, he's been talking to you about it. I've mentioned this before. Why do we keep moving away from it? Is there something that you're saying we shouldn't do? We can't. I mean, I would like to have more information about why you're making a decision. But I'm in consensus with the Vice Mayor and Commissioner Sorensen, because I've been talking about this for a while. Sometimes you don't have the vote or the consensus. I think we have a consensus now to look at it and move it forward. And and I think when we sit in these workshops, we have to really look through this budget and see what things that we may not need at this particular time, and take the old meat cutter, and slice it out. So I would like to know, both the pros and cons, but I still want to at least move forward to consider and see where we can and how we're getting that money if we choose to do so.
Okay. All right. I'll tell you, when we look at those kind of things, or when I look at those kind of things, I look at the number of people impacted by that versus maybe the number of people impacted by doing something different. And if, the research showed that we had a very small handful of employees that would have even availed themselves to use it, that there might have been something else that would have impacted more people. But we could certainly, there's all sorts of different ways to balance a structural budget. So
Okay.
Let me work on it over the summer, and I'll bring back a recommendation.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Yeah.
Swanson.
Is this something also that we can run by, or have we run it by the Budget Advisory Board just to get their input too?
We talked with the Budget Advisory Board. This specific topic has not been, addressed as a specific, hey, let's talk about paid parental leave. But I'll work with our staff, and we'll bring it up with them the next time we talk to them. Okay, let's go to Susan Grant, if she can come to the meeting, please, and talk a little bit about Florida retirement system and about rates and about the dollar figure that we've brought forward and what that means.
Good evening, Mayor, Commission, Chris. Thank you very much. So the FRS employer contributions are set annually, and it's part of the state budget process. This past year, the rates went from under 9%. Effective July 1st, they moved up to 10%. And again, those rates have consistently gone up over the past 5 to 7 years. This year's rate change was due primarily to a change in the investment assumption that they're doing across the board with FRS, and there are more of those to come in future years. The rate that you enter in is never a lock-in rate. So if you're a member of FRS, when they increase the employer rates, your rate will go up with that. The $700,000 that's part of this year's budget proposal for delaying 1 year of entering FRS would be to give the city time to continue to evaluate that, make sure we know what we're investing in and how much it's going to cost us in the long run. And the $700,000 was primarily the cost of offering FRS to the part-time employees, which currently they do not have a plan. And that was only the impact on the general fund. The impact on all of the funds is more. And the impact relating to, you don't know what it's going to cost until you know how many employees actually enter the system. So the proposal was to continue to evaluate it, given the movement of the rates, and that was pretty significant, going from 8.7 and change to 10% in a single year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I think, as I'm looking through my notes, that's the responses to the bullets that I put down. So I think we can move into the first agenda item, and we'll certainly, if there's anything I missed, I'm happy to follow.
Okay.
Yes.
Chris.
Yes.
Thanks. Just eventually, and I don't want to take up anyone's time, but just an update eventually on the Central City CRA rezoning project when you get a moment, and also the EMS awful response times on the Las Olas Isles and heading down the entire corridor, and the possibility of a EMS satellite station. Thanks.
All right, let's talk that deserves a lengthy discussion. We can't do that right now. But there are topics that you can ask Chris to research, and we can get back to that.
I'm fine with that. Thank you.
I've got some response time data to share. It's more visual than it is to talk about. So next time we're together, we'll look at the aisles, and I'll show you the response time chart that I have. With respect to the Central City rezoning, the bid will be released tomorrow to finish that rezoning project. So it's been authored and is ready to go to the market.
Okay, great, thanks. And I'm already aware of the times, Chris. I'm just wondering what we're going to possibly do about it. No, I've seen the latest times. That's why I'm saying they're awful. But thanks, I appreciate it.
I concur with your assessment.
That's why we have to
move on to business. Let's move on to business one. Emergency purchase for the Northwest 13th Street Phase 1 Force Main Replacement Project. We have one person who signed up to speak. Do you want to make a presentation, Chris, on what that's about?
Yeah, I do. Actually, this is just a formality to let the commission know that we've made a purchase that was typical. This one was less atypical than most emergency purchases. Most emergency purchases happen because we've had an issue and we have to immediately select a vendor and say, go fix this broken pipe. This was a project that we started and initiated through the normal procurement process. We did a public procurement bid. Bids were received, and then we went into the COVID world where we couldn't assemble a review committee to review the bids and make a recommendation. So rather than putting the project on hold and waiting until we could assemble a review committee, we elected to move forward because it was a pipe that broke frequently, and we just awarded it to the lowest bidder that we checked references. It happened to be the lowest cost bidder. And so the atypical part that would create the emergency is the lack of having a selection committee. But other than that, this project was competitively bid.
Okay, we have Carmela Palladino from Weston who asked to speak on this. Carmela, are you there? She's not there. She's not there?
Nope. Do not have that name.
Okay. All righty. Then anyone have any questions with regard to this? You're asking for a vote?
Nope, I just needed to let you know.
Okay, very good. Business 2, the Community Shuttle Program update. Chris.
This will be presented tonight by Ben Rogers, and we're going to try to do this with a PowerPoint presentation that's being controlled downstairs, and with Ben in his office. So we're going to go slide by slide, and I'll try to take cues from the commission and the mayor as to when we're ready to go to the next slide, and I'll ask Ben then to move on. So Ben Rogers, please take it away.
Thanks, Chris. Good afternoon, everyone. Ben Rogers, Director of Transportation Mobility. Today we're here to talk about the Community Shuttle Program and some of the ongoing conversations that we're having with the county. And as Chris alluded to, this is the first Zoom conference, so I'll probably pause at the end of each slide for either the mayor to make comment or give direction to go to the next slide. So with that, we can go ahead and move into the presentation and next slide. So the community shuttle program is a feeder system for the Greater Broward County Transit Network, and the intent is to improve mobility and connectivity options across the community where larger buses don't serve. And right now, our current service model includes 4 entities with the county responsible for the countywide program, including financial support and regulatory oversight. The city acts as a contract administrator. The downtown Fort Lauderdale TMA acts as the day-to-day manager, and First Transit as the operator. We can go to the next slide.
Go to the next slide.
So on this slide, a quick overview of what the community shuttle program consists of. There's 5 routes, 12 shuttles with approximately $2 million in operating expenses per year. The operating expense is a reflection of the age of the fleet, which is something that we're working to address. We'll talk about it later today and a recommendation that staff has to mitigate some of those challenges.
Dan, how many people are, that's $2 million a year to run the shuttle program?
Yes, sir.
And how many people are we driving around for $2 million? Do you know off the top of your head?
I don't, especially right now with COVID and the impact we have on the transit. I can definitely pull those numbers and get you maybe a 3-year average or pre-COVID numbers.
I guess my question will ultimately be, how cost effective is this to run all these buses for $2 million when there might be a less costly and equally efficient way to bring people to the destinations that they seek using this community shuttle program? That would ultimately be my question. So I just want to give you a heads up what I'm trying to find out.
Yeah, I can definitely pull those ridership numbers, and I can tell you right now our fleet is definitely aged and end of life. And so if we when we talk on the last slide about recommendations for replacing the fleet, I think those operating costs will come down dramatically. Also, what we'll talk about today is Broward County's role in the transportation surtax and how that is going to assist with some of the funding for this operation.
Okay, thank you.
Next slide, please. So on this slide, it highlights, the fact that Broward County and the city have worked hand in hand for the history of the program. Most recently, in August of last year, we entered into a new agreement that had some terms and conditions that related to the surtax funds, and it increased the county's contribution to the program. Staff met with the county in early March to discuss the program and its offerings. And at that time, the county identified some concerns they have with our compliance with the interlocal agreement. And as such, we haven't received any funding at this time from the county. So in early June, I reached out to the county and provided a letter of how we're going to drive to correct some of those concerns and mitigate some of the exposure areas. And so what we're here today is really just to highlight the kind of the 5 most overarching items in the plan to correct those items so we can receive funding. Next slide. So this is a quick screenshot of the 5 issues. Service delivery and solicitation process go kind of hand in hand. The Title VI deals with compliance and complaints. And the number 4 and 5 are items that you'll hear tonight through a CAM to amend our current agreement for revenue generation and the waive and ride service. Next slide. So this is probably one of the larger conversations is the service delivery. And right now, we're not in compliance with federal regulations because we have not competitively solicited our manager. And so therefore, staff really looked into this, and as we started identifying the ways that we operate, we looked into some efficiencies, and we're recommending that we go out and do a procurement, but the city takes on the responsibility to be the contract administrator and the manager, and that we work directly with the day-to-day operator. Next slide. Issue number 2, like I said, goes with number 1. And what we're looking to do is, if we are going to work directly with the operator, we'll have to do a procurement process. This kind of timeline up here outlines our standard process. We're working right now with our procurement department to find out if there's other agreements that are already FTA approved that we could piggyback or that we could use as templates to expedite the process. But we are going to move forward with a procurement process or a competitive way to identify an operator. The third issue is
Ben.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Who's the operator?
Right now, First Transit is the operator, and they are procured an agreement with the TMA, and then we have an agreement with the TMA, and then the city has an agreement with the county. So there's four players at this time.
So are we talking about the Sun Trolley, right?
Yes,
No?
sir.
Okay. So if the operator changes, it'll be put out for bid for different competitors to operate our fleet. Is that what you're saying?
It'd be twofold. One, right now, if you could go back 2 slides, please. Oh, sorry, 1 slide. So right now in the yellow box, our current model, we have, like I said, four players in the game. We have a program administrator of Broward County, we have a contract administrator of the city, we have a manager in the TMA, and then we have an operator of First Transit. What we're looking to do is consolidate some of these levels. Broward County would still remain as a program administrator. The city would become the contract administrator and the manager, and then we would do a solicitation and seek an operator.
Okay. All right, I'll come back now that I want to clarify that for the public.
All right, keep going.
The third issue is Title VI compliance, and that has to deal with complaint management. This one is a relatively easy lift. We're going to reach out to FDOT and get some recommendations on redesigning the process. We'll purchase some software, and we feel that we can be compliant by October of this year. Next slide. These 2 items you'll hear tonight through CAM 369. The first one, revenue generation, and the body of the interlocal agreement that we have with the county. It prohibits fare box collection, sponsorships, and charter services because the county is willing to pay 100% of the cost of the operations. However, in the agreement, one of the exhibits does not have corresponding language. So the amendment you'll hear on that one tonight is to bring the exhibit and the ILA body into alignment. And then the fifth one is the wave and ride service. If you're familiar with this, all you need to do is wave at any point along the route, and the trolley will stop. That is not compliant with FDA standards, and so what we're looking to do tonight is, once again, update the exhibit that says we were going to remove the wave and ride service. We're going to identify fixed route stops, and that we will be investing over the next year or two in ADA compliant bus stops to meet that requirement.
So how did we go this far with wave and ride? Because we have a long history of folks saying, hey, this is how I want to utilize this public transportation. We also have looked at, who's riding it. And when we tried to expand it, when it went further east, the ridership was less, other than the riders coming from the west going to the service-oriented businesses, if you will. But they have grown accustomed to it, and since its inception, you mean to tell me it's been out of compliance?
Yeah, so I can definitely reach out to the county and get some more history on this. But from my understanding, this has been in the ILA for extended period of times and previous renditions. And the city has made comments that we would improve this or come into alignment, but we've never taken the actions to do so. And so with this new agreement with the county and surtax funding, there's these kind of elements that we need to get into compliance so we can receive that funding from the county.
Is that additional funding? Because the funding that we've received thus far wasn't part of the this new tax money that we have now. And I've been working with your staff, TMA, with charrettes and all sorts of things over the last 6 years of this particular product. And we obviously haven't been in compliance, if I'm hearing it for the first time in this presentation. We've had a different pot of money that funded this. Are we trying to substitute funds here? I mean, I'm just trying to follow what we're doing here.
Yeah, our community shuttle program is full of different funding sources, some grants, some contributions from CRAs, things of that nature. And what the transportation surtax is allowing us to do is the county is willing to fund 100% of that. And so as certain grants have burned off, as things have expired, as the funding sources have changed, the county's coming in and providing more funds than they historically have. And I can get those details for you about what the old hourly rate was compared to what the new hourly rate is.
And if they do this, and I just want my own understanding, if they do this, we got to stop we got to cease, wave, and ride.
Yeah, and so this is, as I mentioned earlier, this is kind of the first step in the process. We've got to identify the stops. We need to make sure that the stops are in alignment with the routes and all of those type of things. Then we'll need to make sure they have ADA compliant with ramps and grades and things of that nature. So this is the first step in good faith effort to show the county that we are moving forward and coming into compliance with these concerns.
And your staff kind of brought this stuff up in some of our charrettes, and they talked about one time we couldn't even follow the same route as the county buses, and we talked about the charrettes. I mean, why not? This is why we found ourselves back up in the housing authority and back up in neighborhoods, not to duplicate the route, but the same folks riding this is riding public transportation throughout the county. And they did bring it up. Karen and her staff, they did a good job. So it's good to see that we're looking at it. I just wanted to understand how this will go away and how the funding will be substituted. If it's still 100%, we don't affect the routes, I can live with it because it impacts me the most. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Next slide. And then the last slide here is just about the fleet. As I referenced earlier, we've got an aging fleet. We did receive a grant from the Broward MPO for about $4.5 million. And over the last year, the TMA and the city have kind of evaluated different options from diesel to electric to propane. We've had test buses, we had demos, we had walk-ons, things of that nature. And one of the concerns that staff brought forward was if we accept and utilize these funds, the back of house requirements with meeting FTA audits and regulatory oversight. And we really didn't have the resources in-house to do that. And so what we're doing now is we're looking towards Broward County and part of the transportation surtax. They will fund or they will lease us cutaway buses, which are 29-foot buses for $10 a year. And we can take those cutaways and fulfill all of our service obligations and have less auditing, oversights, regulatory. We do lose some of the character of the Sun Trolley, but other municipalities within Broward County have wrapped their cutaways with graphics or something that signifies the route and the service area.
So we're scrapping our whole template.
Yeah, we are making some major changes, and that's why I wanted to bring it forward today to provide you with an update and get your feedback.
So what are we voting on tonight?
So tonight, it's just the two items, number 4 and number 5, the wave and ride service and the revenue generation item.
But if we choose that, then we're saying we're scrapping our whole deal. We're saying we're going out for competitive bid, we're changing the funding source, and we're changing the routes.
Tonight, all we're doing is 4 and 5. So that'll be revenue generation. So if we cease revenue generation activities, then the county can fund 100% of the operations. And if we scrap the wave and ride system and move to a fixed route system, that puts us more in compliance with both our interlocal agreement with the county and with FTA regulations.
Do we have to do this tonight? I mean, because it kind of got thrusted upon us. I mean, I just got this week. And now we're talking about scrapping a program that people have been accustomed to. I don't know if I have enough time to wrap my head around this to be able to make a good decision that's going to impact us in perpetuity. The way that I'm looking at it now, do we have time to push this off and bring it back? And I can talk to some of the folks involved. I mean, because somebody's already done their homework to bring this presentation to us, and I appreciate the efforts. But I'm just taken aback. Be hit. It feels like I'm being hit with a hammer right now to make a decision on a critical piece of public transportation that now is going to be retooled, and I haven't had an opportunity to talk to other parties involved in it other than staff here recently. Is there any way we can postpone this? Or is it critical that you do this tonight?
Yeah, so I can reach out to the county. Actually, I think that Barney or Angelo is actually on the call that might be able to clarify. One of the things that we were trying to do was get this addressed in a timely manner before you went on recess, so that way we could start getting reimbursements back from the county. Right now, without the reimbursements, we're running out of general fund dollars to to support the operations and want to make sure that we can continue to offer this service.
And see, and to me, this goes back to what the mayor was talking about earlier when we talked about the issue that Vice Mayor was talking about. I want to make sure we're not playing some type of, and I'm not accusing anybody of anything, any type of, because we're now facing financial shortfalls, that we're not robbing Peter to pay Paul. This is a good substitute. Don't get me wrong, but I just don't know the inner workings of the nuts and bolts to make a decision tonight on this. I mean, and you just spoke to, we can start billing the county right away for these dollars. So I'm just not real clear right now on this.
Well, Robert, let me ask Ben this. Ben, if I'm understanding this correctly, what you're looking to do is to substitute the Sun Trolley vehicles for regular buses, which the county is willing to subsidize the operation and charging us only $10 a year for renting them. And the reason why you wanted a decision tonight is because we're running out of money to run the Sun Trolley. So if we don't make a decision tonight, they're not going to be operating while we're gone, is what you're saying. You're saying we're running out of general revenue funds in order to pay for it. So are those the choices we're making tonight? I'm trying to distill everything down to something very simple that I can understand. Is that what we're looking at tonight?
Yeah, so there are multiple options or multiple items in this presentation. The bus purchase and that transition of buses is really just an update on where our mind is right now. That's nothing that you're voting on tonight and has nothing to do with the timeliness of this. The other items about solicitation and moving to a different operator or a different manager, those aren't on the agenda for tonight either. The only two items are the fare revenue generating activities and the wave and ride. And if I can, Mr. Mayor, the Barney McCoy from Broward County Transit's on the line, and he might be able to speak to
but
the timing.
Before that, the mayor asked a question in addition to my question, which is the same question. So if we don't choose this evening, will the Sun Trolley as we know it not be funded during our break?
No, I think we could continue to operate, but I think Barney could shed some light on the county's position in reimbursing funds. So right now, to date, we have not received any reimbursements for this fiscal year. So that goes back all the way through October.
That's based on the new tax, the sales tax, the penny sales tax, right?
It's based on the fact that our interlocal agreement with the county, we have these 5 overarching concerns that they brought to our attention. And we need to show good faith to mitigate these concerns and show that we're going to be in alignment with our agreement.
And I agree with you guys, but the problem I'm having is, Mayor, is we got this agenda Thursday, right? Now I'm making a $2 million decision on something that could help, hurt, make better, what have you. I'm not picking any one of those things. I just don't feel comfortable tonight doing it. So if we punt this until our recess is over, will the Sun Trolley go out of business? And what type of repercussions will we get as a result of this 48-hour notice we're getting?
Why don't we let the gentleman from the county respond to that? There.
City Clerk, if you could, all right, Barney McCoy.
Good afternoon. My name is Barney McCoy. I'm the Assistant General Manager for Service and Strategic Planning for Broward County Transit.
Can you turn on your camera?
From my desk here, no, sir, I can't.
I like to see people talking. I really don't like people coming in blind. I mean, I know you very well, sir, from our meetings at MPO. But I just like to see people especially when they're presenting something as critical as this to me.
Understood, sir. And I do apologize for that. I do not have a camera here at the workstation.
I'm sorry.
As Ben had indicated, though, the items that have been identified have been some back and forth discussion with the city and the county actually since before March, but we had meetings with the city attorney and the county attorney in March of this year, to essentially put the city on notice that these issues had to be addressed. As Ben has also indicated, we have not reimbursed the city for any monies in this current fiscal year. We recently released a payment in good faith effort of approximately $250,000 based on the fact that we got this good faith effort plan to proceed and address these issues. But the monies that you have left in the balance for this fiscal year is approximately $900,000. And if these issues are not resolved, the county cannot reimburse the city to continue to operate the community shuttle program there as it currently operates. There are federal issues that are involved. The county is a recipient of federal funds, which means we are, responsible for federal oversight. The ADA issue, you are correct, that ADA issue goes back years. And we've always had conversations to let the cities know we need to start addressing these ADA issues. The problem is that it's a liability issue, not only for the county, but for the city as well. There are no caps in terms of federal lawsuits, and the longer that you continue to operate in this manner, you put the county in a position in terms of liability, you put the city in terms of position of liability, and then you jeopardize federal funds coming into the region.
And I understand that, but here's what I need an understanding from you. And I work with you I trust you, but here, I just got this Thursday. You guys have been talking to our staff or somebody at our city and have made a decision before I can intelligently sift through the information and make my own decision. So that's what is troubling me right now. And I think Ben and TMA and you all, I think you guys have all the knowledge, but everybody's had a conversation except the commission. And do I have enough time to come back to you when we resume in August? That's all I'm asking. Do I have enough time or is this that critical that it goes kaboom, in this manner? Because I just got it Thursday. I didn't get a call from you. I didn't get a call from anybody to tell me what we are doing. I had an opportunity to talk to my city manager in my Monday morning briefings. I didn't get this deep into the weeds. So I just need an understanding. Can I wait until August? That's all.
You can wait until August, Commissioner McKenzie, but also understand that the dollars do not roll over from year to year. If we close this fiscal year and these issues have not been addressed, there's a good possibility that the city will forfeit any possible funding from this fiscal year.
So I got to August, you're saying. If I make a decision in August, we can move this forward. We
can make a decision to move forward, but again, these items need to be rectified or at least a good way in terms of having them rectified before we close.
Did anyone think it not necessary to talk to the commissioners about this in depth, other than 48 hours out?
So, Commissioner, this is Chris. Let me address that. So this is the first conference meeting that we've had, and this is largely why we drove to a conference meeting to have this discussion. We did send, and I had Transportation and Mobility try the best we could to frame this issue in a commission memorandum that we sent and delivered to the commission prior to anything publishing, so that you would have, the ability to at least at a very high level understand the magnitude of what we were hoping to bring forward for discussion. But this item, because of the deadline associated with it.
Yeah, but we brought things before in these same changing times of Zoom and COVID. We've had some pressing issues that we just marched right to the front of the line and we dealt with it and we did a pretty good job. Tonight, this item I do not feel comfortable with it. If they're both saying we can wait till August and we do not create a budgetary shortfall, I would much rather have it then, and I would love for the other commissioners to chime in. But I mean, this was just thrown at us, and all of a sudden, I mean, imagine if it's just too much for me to digest.
Well, all right. Why don't we have the other commissioners chime in, because I don't want to lose $1 million that's sitting on the table. So
but I want to know the drop dead date before you spin it. I want to know the drop dead date. Can I wait till August? Don't spin it, because it's going to impact my district the most. So I'm willing to take the time to vet it, because people's lives are at stake here in terms of their habits of a transportation vehicle they've been accustomed to when it wasn't in compliance. So to me tonight, we're just switching the funding sources based on what I heard. I don't know, but that's what I heard.
It's not necessarily switching funding sources, Commissioner McKenzie. It's a funding issue in addition to the fact it's a compliance issue, and the compliance issue drives the funding source.
The compliance issue's been out there since inception. So all I'm asking, can I wait till August to make this decision? Because you talked to my attorney, you talked to my city manager, no one talked to me.
Commissioner McKenzie, all due respect, though, that would not be incumbent upon me to raise this to the city commission for the city.
Okay.
We are agreeable to work with the city. Ben and I have had some ongoing discussions. Again, the meeting that we had back in March was actually done at the request of the city attorney.
It's July. It's July. I got it Thursday. So how do you think I feel? You guys talked in March. It's July. I got it Thursday.
Commissioner, I think the situation is that at some point we are going to have to transition into a different mode of vehicle, as Ben has indicated tonight, that these vehicles, these sun trolleys, have pretty much gone through their useful life, and they're costing us more and more money every year to operate.
Mayor, I get all that.
Let me finish. So at some point, we're going to have to make a decision as to whether or not we're going to move forward. So I know you understand that. So I get it that we feel like it's just being thrust upon us without having the ability to vet it with our neighbors. But at some point, we're going to have to make the decision. The decision is being made for us anyway. We can't keep these trolleys. They're going to have to be retired. So, and now the county is presenting to us an opportunity to use regular buses to be able to substitute. At least we have an alternative vehicle instead of no vehicle, and at a cost that is minimal compared to what we're operating now. That's really, I think, how we should be looking at this.
And I want you to understand something, Mayor. You don't have to rephrase this for me. I understood it from the beginning. So all I'm saying is, I need more time until August, if I'm allowed, based on Ben and the county saying that I would not cause a fiscal impact negatively on the city. I want to wait until August to make my decision. That's all I'm asking. They both have said we can wait till August, but we can't go beyond that particular date. And that's what I understood. So I don't need you to repeat it to me. I don't want to rush on this unless the drop dead date is tonight.
What is so let me interject. What is the fiscal year, Mr. McCoy? What I just want to confirm that it matches our fiscal year.
Our fiscal year ends September 30th.
Okay, thank you.
All right, does anybody else have any opinions on this?
You can hold off until August. Again, we're in the middle of July right now, but I need to go on record so that everyone understands. The issues that we're talking about, the county is not negotiable on because, again, there are federal interests involved. If you choose to continue to operate in the manner that you operate, that's certainly at the will of the commission. What I'm telling you is that the county will not continue to fund your program if these issues are not addressed.
I got it, but if I can wait till August and say yes or no, we're still fine. I won't compromise anything. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm fine, and I'm sure I'm going to go your way, but I want to sift through the information some more.
Does anybody else on the commission have an opinion regarding this?
Yes.
Yes, I do, Mayor.
Oh, wait, Commissioner Glassman. Let me start with Commissioner Moritas, please.
Sorry, Commissioner Glassman. I was trying to wave my hands. Thank you. I understand this issue a little bit after serving on TMA on that board. And Ben, just clarify for me that we are not losing service if we switched to a new operator manager system, right? Our service in the city will be the same?
Yeah, so right now, all the service levels would remain the same. All it would be doing is saying driver A is replaced with driver B or something along those lines. Or the incumbent could win the solicitation process, but we do need to go through that competitive process and meet all of the FTA regulations.
Okay, so tonight we're just voting on the fare box and the wave and ride, and that we need to vote on that to meet compliance, and I understand that. But I think the bigger picture that we will ultimately vote on is whether or not we continue to use the TMA group, the nonprofit group, as a operator versus the City of Fort Lauderdale being the operator manager. And in my opinion, especially with the surtax funding, and I know we are getting reimbursed more per hour based on that surtax funding also. You know, in my opinion, I don't think we need to raise money from private sources to operate transportation in the city of Fort Lauderdale. And I know the TMA was initially kind of set up for that reason. It was a 501c3 or something so that it could raise some additional private funds to help the budget. But I was always kind of confused why these routes weren't 100% funded by the city or county in this case, because it is transportation. So in my opinion, it makes sense to move forward with the operator manager being the city of Fort Lauderdale. I don't think we need that 4-part track or the 4-part, process that you showed on that one slide where we do kind of use a different operator or manager, whatever word we're using. So, I feel ready to move forward with any recommendation you have to move forward with that plan, with the city of Fort Lauderdale taking over, as long as you're guaranteeing us that we do not lose any interruption in service or the routes. And I understand we're purchasing new equipment and a new fleet and stuff like that. I think it's just a good time to transition from the TMA operating to the city of Fort Lauderdale operating with the surtax funding and also the compliance issues we're having and also the fact that we're transitioning to a new fleet. So it makes sense. And also I do want to add for the record, I would like the service that was taken away from the Gulf to be reinstated if possible. We did lose that service about 2 years ago. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I agree with Commissioner Moritas' points. I also think that delaying this all the way to August 18th and then God only knows what could happen then if we don't act now could put us in jeopardy. This is really about a reimbursement. I don't think that extra few weeks is going to make a difference with what we need to comply with right now. I don't see how any of that's going to change what will be in front of us then. In other words, I don't know what we gain by the extra 6 weeks of time. I believe that some of these issues were aired in the neighborhoods, the TMA board, and maybe Ben can help me with that. What kind of outreach was done to the Northwest? I know that Roosevelt Walters sits on the TMA board. I'm sure he had some conversations with folks. I'd like to hear a little bit more about that outreach. But I think we need to go forward with this tonight, and I am not in favor of delaying this. There's too much money at stake, too much reimbursement. Basically, this is not much cost to us at all. And yet there's so much at stake. So I don't see what we gain. I would like to move forward with this today.
Commissioner Sorensen?
Yeah, I've met one-on-one with Ben Rogers about this, and he's helped educate me and walk me through it. And so, yeah, I'm very comfortable moving forward ahead with this. It's an important improvement, and the more closely we can align and work with the county on this and anything else is great. So, yeah.
All right. We have one person who is asked to speak, Robin Chiarelli. Is she on the line?
Yes.
She is. Okay. Robin, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Mayor.
Great. I'll give you 3 minutes.
I see that you can't see me, but I'm hoping that's okay. I do have the ability on my computer, if you would like me to try real quick to figure out how to get you to see me.
Okay, just talk because your time is running.
Yes, I'm Robin Chiarelli. I'm the Executive Director of the Downtown Fort Lauderdale Transportation Management Association. We were established on May 8th, 1992, 28 years ago, for the goal of lessening the burdens of government. The original purpose of the TMA was to collaborate with private and governmental entities to improve accessibility and mobility in the downtown area of Fort Lauderdale. I'm just here this evening to let you know that the TMA is here to provide continued support on these issues or any issues in the future. I did send a letter to the city as well as the county commission yesterday to hopefully provide some more information to help you better understand all of the all 5 of the concerns that were raised, that were referenced by Ben Rogers. So I'm just here, let you know that I'm present to answer any questions. I'd be happy to assist in any way I can. One thing I do want to note is that, and Barney McCoy is on the line, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. McCoy, but the transportation surtax dollars will only cover operations and maintenance costs and will not cover any administrative costs. That being said, it would be wise for the City Commission to fully understand what the financial comparison is between what the financial comparison is for all of the decisions that you're making, whether you're going to say yes or no, which would be which direction would have a longer term impact on the city. And I'm not just talking about August being the impact, I'm talking about 3 years down the line, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, et cetera.
All right, great. Thank you so much. All right, so it seems that the majority is willing to move forward with the recommendation by staff. And to anyone have any questions of Mr. Robin Chiarelli? Okay, there being none.
Good afternoon. This is Barney. I could speak to the comment that Robin made if it's necessary, though.
Well, I think the majority has already spoken, so we need to just move on.
I would love to hear it.
All right, Barney, would you like to say something else?
Sure. Commissioner Moriarty had asked about the funding that we provided the City of Fort Lauderdale. For fiscal year 18, there was approximately $250,000 funded for your program. For fiscal year 19, it was about $1.1 million. For next year, it's scheduled to be $1.5 million. The cities are reimbursed based on an hourly rate multiplied times your hours of service. That's the operating and maintenance cost. Right now, the average hourly rate in the system for those that contract is about $55. The latest information that we got for the contract between the TMA and First Transit, it sits about at $73, $74 per hour right now. Robin is correct. The surtax will not pay for the administrative costs, but what we're talking about here in terms of cost for the cities, it's not the operating and maintenance cost. It's the cost for the TMA associated with the TMA and the program administration. So when we did your numbers based on your service times an hourly rate, it puts us at $1.5 million. Anything above that $1.5 million, though, they're not costs associated with your community shuttle program. They're costs associated with the administrative costs incurred by the TMA.
Okay. All right. So thank you, Barney. I appreciate your contribution and explanation. So it appears that the majority wants to move forward, and I guess that's it on that item. Mr. City Manager, do you have any more part of your manager's report?
I will at the evening meeting, but we're fairly off track.
We are off track.
So let's keep going if we can, because we've got court reporters and all on the call. And I'm checking here real quick, Mr. Mayor, if there's a way to do start the evening meeting now and then move into the CRA meeting. But we may need to do the
we need to do the CRA meeting first.
I don't know that there's a companion item on in the evening meeting, so.
Where is there a court reporter?
Just for if we have any discussions regarding, solicited proposals.
Which we will at the end of the evening.
At the end of the evening.
Right.
Yeah, I'll double check. I don't think there's an accompanying item, so we could probably start the regular meeting. And before we get to that,
I think we should go through the CRA.
You want to do CRA? CRA it is.
So the conference meeting is hereby concluded, and I'd like to now convene the CRA board meeting. After the CRA board meeting, we'll have a 10-minute break before we go into the evening meeting, just so everybody knows there'll be a break. Would the city clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Moritas?
Here.
Vice Chair Glassman?
Here.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Here.
Commissioner Sorensen?
Here.
Chair Trenthouse?
Here. In an effort to encourage people to stay at home, limit public gatherings, and slow the spread of the coronavirus, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has waived state requirements for local governments to have in-person quorums for public meetings as part of the Executive Order 20-69. Fort Lauderdale will be hosting virtual commission meetings, audio-video conferencing software until further notice. Public will be able to listen to and view the virtual meeting at www.fortlauderdale.gov/FLTV, www.youtube.com/City of Fort Lauderdale, as well as the Comcast Channel 78 and AT&T UVerse Channel 99. To speak on an agenda item, please click on the link below. The link is b as in boy it.ly/virtual CC meetings. I'll repeat that. That's bit.ly/virtual CC meetings. The roll call has now been called. We have M1, motion to approve minutes for the June 16, 2020 CRA board meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas,
Yes.
Vice Chair Glassman,
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Chair Trentell.
Yes, and the motion has been approved. M2, it's a motion approving a change order number 5 for $2,769,201 for the addition of the north observation deck, and change order number 6 for $5 million.
Mayor, just these, the city attorney's office asked us to take these out of order.
Correct.
So this one would be M5.
M5, I'm sorry, I have that note right here. Let me correct myself. We're moving on to M5 because of the necessary sequence. These need to be taken. We're going to go directly to the motion waiving the maximum award.
But Mayor,
Yes,
but M5 is not related. M3, 4, and 5 are related, but M2, which you were about to do, has nothing to do with 3, 4, and 5.
Right.
I understand that, but the city attorney's office asked us to take M5.
Well, you can do, if you want to do M1, out of M3, M4, M5, M5 needs to go first. So
Right, but it has nothing to do with M2.
It has nothing to do with M2. You're correct.
So, okay.
All right. So I'm moving on to M5. Motion waiving maximum award amount of $225,000 under the Property and Business Improvement Program for the Donna's Caribbean Restaurant Project at 2012 Northwest 6th Street. Anyone have any questions with regard to this? Okay.
Yes.
There being none? Oh, you do? Yes, Vice Mayor.
Yes, but I'm okay, but I just have some questions as to the breakdown and to our process and the extra 35,000 and why we seem to repeatedly go over the maximum amount. If we're going to do that, why don't we just set a new maximum amount?
That's what I've asked for years, and we again, here's something that we've historically kept this amount of money, and this is why we keep running to these overages like Fuse. They came back and got $100,000 for their drainage system. Smitty's Wings tried. The other one we just did for the Boldens. They all go over because we look at today's cost compared to when we put these thresholds in play. It's just not enough. So I think what the CRA has done, and correct me if I'm wrong, Clarence, in this case, based on my conversation with them, they're putting the allowances there, anticipating it might happen. So if it happens, they won't have to come back for us and say, hey, we need these additional dollars based on past practices. Well, I agree with you, Vice Mayor. I think we did look at the threshold, and you could barely get a condo remodel for $225,000, and these dollars are intended for these type of programs to incentivize and rebuild an area that has been gentrified, so to speak. So we do have to change it. I don't know when we're going to do it or take it seriously, and just change it so that we don't have to have these type of micromanaging of small construction projects.
Right. I mean, it's just that.
Vice Mayor,
Yes.
Vice Mayor, I mean, let's look back. I think the purpose of putting that limit was to encourage applicants to make sure that they were making a sufficient capital contribution to their projects, that their projects were not being overly funded by the city. In this particular case, I believe we're being asked to fund half the amount. And so, half the amount of the total investment. So here's a typical example of why this cap was put at this level, so that we could encourage the applicant to have more skin in the game than just to have a lesser amount. So I think that's a proper conversation. I don't think we can have that right now because there's a motion for us with regard to this particular thing. If we want to change the threshold, we can do that at some point. But let's bring it up at a conference meeting and we can have that discussion. Right now, we're just having to vote for or against raising the limit on this particular application. So is there a motion one way or the other?
Mayor, I understand that, so thank you for that. I just wanted just one more point, because it's deceiving sometimes for the public. They see an agenda item, you're waiving the maximum award amount of $225, and in reality, you're actually going to be awarding $325. So it's not like it's just a few dollars above the $225. It's quite a substantial amount above the $225. When you factor in the other amounts, the award will be $325. Okay, I'm good, thanks.
All right, does anyone want to make a motion?
Moved to approve.
Is there a second? Do I hear a second?
Second.
Commissioner Morais, did you second it?
Yes.
She did.
Okay, I can't hear you. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas,
Yes.
Vice Chair Glassman,
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Chair Trentalis.
Yes, and the motion is approved to waive the maximum award above the $225,000 maximum. So the next item should be M3, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So we're moving to M3. Now this is a motion approving the allocation of $325,000 from the Property and Business Investment Improvement Program to Junny Investment Group, LLC, for the Donna's Caribbean Restaurant Project at 2012 Northwest 6th Street. Anyone have any questions with regard to this item?
I do, Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. I would just like a very specific, succinct answer as to why the CAM says the total project cost is $592,340. But if you look at the budget in the backup, it says $767,000.
So Vice Mayor, let's go to Clarence. I see he's off mute. Clarence, can you join in? Please help us answer that question.
Yes, sir. So what happened is when we had when we originally submitted the documentation, the backup for this item to come before the Board of Commissioners, we had not had all of the additional cost at that point in time. So we did include the new budget that actually shows the actual cost, which is the 700 figure. That 700 figure includes additional, the additional funding that the business owner will be putting into the build out of the space. And just to be clear, the $325,000 is allocated, but the actual amount that we're asking for is only $290,000. What we're trying to do is prevent exactly what you guys are talking about, is having to keep coming back because the loan limit is only $225,000. And what has happened quite often is that once we get into the actual construction, then you find all of these issues that bring about change orders, and then we have to wind up coming back. Not only do we have to come back for change orders that are unforeseen, but then we have some issues relative to code where there are new requirements that are unforeseen, like Commissioner McKenzie spoke of, where DSD is requiring that the runoff or the water retention for the project happens on the property, which they're asking that we do wells, or that the business owner do retaining wells. As an additional expense that was not foreseen for this type of development.
Okay.
And we saw this at Fuse,
Fuse,
Spanish Wings, and all the previous projects that we just did.
We had
DSD recommended that, and the cost went up right away, $60-something thousand. Am I correct?
$65,000 is the additional cost that we are looking to approve.
Because the cities, DSD said, do these extra things before, in addition to the budget that Vice Mayor spoke to.
Right. And that was before we when we had, that was the old budget, before we had submitted all of the paperwork for the item.
Oh, okay.
Clarence,
Sorry,
no problem. Clarence, while
Yes,
you're
sir.
on the line, I have a question. If you look at Exhibit 7, page 15, is this whole exhibit just out of date, or was it submitted a long time ago? Because so many of the answers, they don't make sense, huh?
Yes, and we did. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, why do we get this kind of an exhibit? It's like page 15. Do you have a detailed scope of work? Not yet. Design's not complete. I mean, that doesn't do me any good. So it's like,
and we do have more current information. We do have more current information.
Well, how come we don't have it?
Because we submitted all of the documentation. Remember, we have to have that information over to the agenda coordinator well in advance of us actually coming to the meeting. I mean,
okay, I would imagine that we could get updated information, or like the county does a supplemental information or whatever. But yeah, because if I read stuff that says when's commencement of the project, what date, January 2020, well, that didn't happen, and then no designs, and I'm just wondering, if I'm going to take the time to read all of this, why am I reading stuff that's just not relevant? I'd rather have stuff that's relevant. That's all.
Oh, how ironic, huh?
Part of that was because of the COVID situation. We've been dealing with this project since way back then. And once we were out for the COVID-19 situation, yes, some of the information is stale. We did get newer information, which we did include. We did include the new budgets and everything. That should be there.
Yeah, no, it is. That's why I was wondering why the budget said 767 and the CAM said 592 total. That's okay. I just try to see how things match up and make sense, but I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments with regard to this item? Okay, do I hear a motion? This will be on M3.
Moved.
Anyone willing to make? It's been moved. Anyone interested in seconding it?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas,
Yes.
Vice Chair Glassman,
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Chair Trentalis.
Yes, and the item is approved. Congratulations and good luck. Can't wait to stop by and taste it. What is this going to be, like another year or so before they're open?
We're not done yet.
One more to that piece.
We got M3.
M4.
M4.
4.
Yeah. No. All right, M4. A motion approving a forgivable loan in the amount of $290,000 to Johnny Investment Group LLC for Donna's Caribbean Restaurant located at 2012 Northwest 6th Street, and delegating authority to the Executive Director to increase the award to a full allocation of $325,000 subject to the satisfaction of certain conditions. Any questions with regard to this?
Hey, Mayor.
Wait one
Mayor.
second. So the total amount that we're giving to this applicant is 325?
No, the total amount is 290. What we've
It's
done
290.
yes, what that additional $35,000 is just for contingency, only in the case that we find some unforeseen circumstances where it's a contingency fund, and if we have to use it, then we would. But if it's not, then it goes back into our capital improvement fund.
Mayor,
Okay. All right, any other questions?
I just got a clarification.
Is Dr. Pittman on the line? She is.
Yes.
Dr. Pittman, I'm sorry I didn't see your ask to speak on M5. Since this is the same item, please go ahead and give us your thoughts on this.
Okay, Mayor. I don't know. At this point, the board has already been made. We were asking for the vote to be not taken tonight regarding this. But let me tell you what I have here. As the president of Historic Dorsey Riverbend Civic Association, I'm making the following statement on behalf of the membership of our association. On February 24th, at a regular monthly meeting, as an agenda item, we had Dr. Fidel Goldson Jr. present and discuss a proposal for the Donna Caribbean Restaurant at 2010 Northwest 6th Street. The item was discussed, but no vote was held. The item was tabled, seeking additional information and further discussion by the membership. However, we know that the pandemic, we're living in the midst of it, and we have not had another meeting to discuss this information. We had many concerns, okay? We did not have a full consensus for those who were in attendance. We want you to know that currently, we have concerns about the traffic flow at Northwest 20th Avenue and 6th Trunk Boulevard. Vehicles can only make a right turn going eastbound onto the boulevard. The vehicles cannot go left onto the boulevard, which would most likely make the patrons come south into the neighborhood, which would majorly impact and increase the traffic flow onto 20th Avenue and 21st Avenue, where we have small children, families, and seniors living. Currently, we have a challenge for the homeowners. It will be a challenge for the homeowners as they try to leave the neighborhood at 21st Avenue during rush hour and other hours while this traffic getting to Donna's is present. There's also a concern about the lack of adequate parking, enough parking that would prevent the overflow of parking coming over onto 20th Avenue. We don't want to see double parking, blocking access to our homeowners' private property and to their driveways. Now, like I said before, due to the pandemic and COVID-19, the association has not been able to reconvene to discuss the matter, nor have we had another opportunity to discuss this with Junie investment groups. We were trying to meet before this, but everything has changed because of the pandemic. What we're concerned about is an epic traffic fail in our community due to this traffic inflow that's going to affect us. We were asking before the approval for avocations, we were asking that the city and that our commission would think over these concerns that we have and come up with a solution of resolve, because this is going to be a major problem for our neighborhood. We are excited about the opportunity for the restaurant, Donna Caribbean Restaurant, to come into the neighborhood, but we cannot negate and ignore the fact that this is going to be a major traffic issue. And we were asking that there was a discussion and a resolve for that issue. Thank you for listening to me, and thank you again for this time.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. Ben, are you on the line?
Ben Rogers.
Ben Rogers?
And Clarence again as well.
Yes, sir.
did you have any contribution to the analysis of the traffic pattern that was going to be developed as a result of construction of this project?
I don't have any personal knowledge. I can check with Anthony in the development process and find out if there's a traffic study or a statement completed.
Can I chime in for a moment, Mayor?
Yes, please.
Dr. Beasley Pittman is absolutely right. We have had these talks, but I just spoke with the applicant as recent as a couple of weeks ago, and I guess this is going to be a DSD question. And I went over all those concerns, and he had told me that all these issues have been addressed. Now, I know you go through the application process for permission to have this permitted, but and every issue she hit was talked about for months at end in terms of what the immediate neighborhood did not want. Unless Clarence or someone could speak to it, like me, I don't have a problem with the project. And I told the investors that, you know, turning into a neighborhood out of that parking lot, and for you all who are at the commission, this project is that when we line up for the parade from MLK, which is my street, BSD, and then it's the next street west to us. So it's 3 different intersections that do not intersect, if that makes any sense. So you got 19th Avenue on my street on the south side of Sistrunk. The 19th Avenue again starts on the north side, about 50 yards to the west. And then 20th Avenue starts about another 20 yards from 19th Avenue. And then you're at 21st and Interstate 95, the overpass. So it's a huge traffic congestion and confusion. I asked Ben, I think a month ago, to come and look at that intersection because the neighbors wanted a red light there because that's how bad the traffic is at these 3 streets that don't intersect. So it is a serious problem. I didn't see the building department even approving it without trying to figure out how you're gonna get people in and out of that property when you already have a existing restaurant there now. But the owners of the property, who are part of the investment group, they control the whole property, and we have been talking all the parties, and I thought it had been resolved. And I didn't talk to Ms. Beasley prior to this meeting to get an update from them, but it was told to me that it was resolved, and I would like to know how. So I still like the project. We just got to figure out this traffic, and I would love for you all to take a drive by there. I mean, we could improve it in concept, but maybe hold it contingent upon these issues being worked out, because it's going to be a nightmare there. Because right now, if you go right now, you'll see with the testing site there, it's a nightmare. It's right by Lincoln Park. So Donna's, the way I know it and have enjoyed it, creates a lot of traffic.
So what are you recommending, Commissioner?
Maybe Anthony can help us out. Maybe he's seen the project and have vetted it. I just need some more information that these concerns were dealt with prior to us moving forward, because if they're not dealt with, I mean, I don't see how this project goes forward. I mean, I love it. The neighbors love it. We just had a concern with someone turning right off of Sistrunk, right into the neighborhood to avoid the traffic of Sistrunk, in particular during rush hour. And any time of the day you try to get out of these 3 streets, it's impossible. You have to turn around, go back to the neighborhood, and go down to 15th to get out of this neighborhood. That's how bad it is. So we want the project. We got to figure out this traffic mitigation piece.
Mayor?
All right, yes. I was going to ask Anthony Fajardo to respond. Can you just wait a second?
Of course.
Vice Mayor?
Of course.
Anthony, are you on the line?
I am, Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Unfortunately, right now, I don't have a detailed update. I'm trying to get one from staff. They're looking into it. I'd be happy to update you a little bit later on during the meeting if you like.
So you know what I'm talking about, right, Anthony? So imagine being in your building and turning right, and that first left is where this property, where this proposed project is going. So you can't get out of there and get in there in the mornings coming from your house, from the east side.
Yeah, no,
Unless
traffic
you're
on that
early.
side of the street is pretty intense.
And trying to come back home at 4 or 5 o'clock. I don't know what time you leave. I'm going to assume you stay after hours, because that's how dedicated you are.
10 p.m., about 10 p.m.
But with 10 p.m. there's no traffic. But no, in all seriousness, that's a tough. I keep calling it intersection because when I was a little kid, there was a light there, so it was something like a intersection. But as development took place, the light disappeared, and you have these 3 streets that should intersect that don't. So,
Vice Mayor, what did you want to add to this conversation?
Well, first, I would just love to say to Dr. Pittman, please, don't be shy about writing to all of us and letting us know your concerns before a meeting, because then I would have had that information before we even discussed M5. I wanted to ask Commissioner McKenzie, is it okay if this can just hold until August 18th? Because I'm really inclined now to ask to defer this or to support a deferral so that this can be totally vetted and figured out by the neighborhood. I mean, I want to defer to you on this, but I'm just more.
I'm willing to yield to Dr. Pittman, but at the same time, I would also want to hear more from staff in terms of the process. How will this, set us back? But I'm more than willing to wait until August to move this forward so that we can just, because they have been talking with the investors. That's the good thing. These 2 groups have been talking. We just don't know until you put a permit application in the building department what the do's and don'ts are. I just think on my knowledge that it won't work. But I'm not DSD, I'm not zoning. But whatever we can do to make it work with all of these concerns taken into consideration is what we're looking for. So I don't mind doing that, Clarence. And,
all right, so shall we defer the item and then return?
Don't we have to undo what we did?
I think you're okay.
I think we're okay.
Yeah, I think you can go ahead and go forward with M5 and even M3, but if you defer M4, I think you're okay just deferring the one item.
Yeah, I don't think he wants the money unless it's going to be forgivable. So I think we're okay.
So we're going to defer M4 and come back in August with all those concerns. And so I really need you to take a look at this for us and get with Dr. Pittman and the. What you say, Alan?
So all right. So there's a motion on the floor to defer the M4 to August 18th of 2020. Do I hear a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Sorensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas?
Yes.
Vice Chair Glassman?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Chair Trentell?
Yes, and M4 has now been deferred until August 18th. Last item is M2. The motion approving change order number 5 for $2,769,201 for the addition of the north observation deck, and change order number 6 for $5,101,060 for the addition of the 27-meter dive tower to the Aquatic Center renovation project, Hensel Phelps Construction Company, for a total of $7,870,261. We have someone from Hensel Phelps, I guess, is here to answer any questions. Do I hear a motion with regard to this item?
Mayor, I'll move it, but I also have some questions.
All right, so, well, before you ask any questions, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded in discussion. Yes, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'll ask a few more questions when we get later to the consolidated budget amendments. But for this particular issue, has there ever been any thought with regards to the north observation deck and even other seating to any kind of a shade structure or even temporary shade for that's a large area? People will be sitting there like just no shade at all. Has anyone thought about anything like that?
Like a tenting of some sort?
Well, I mean, will there be any provision made?
Like awnings or tenting that we've seen?
Well,
Yeah.
When we have these meets, or when we have, these diving exhibitions or whatever, I'm just a little concerned that people will just be sitting out there and broiling.
Right.
I just didn't know if Hensel Phelps or anyone else had any thought about what we could do to mitigate that heat and that sun.
Do
So,
it
Vice Mayor, let's
indoor,
turn to,
indoor.
Sorry.
Wait,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
City Manager?
No, I was going to turn to Don Morris, who's been most closely aligned with the design team, to see if that has been a topic of discussion. Don?
Yes, Commissioner, Mayor Commissioner, this is Don. So I also have Tom Green, our project manager, who is also a panelist, and I'd like it if we could chime him in as well, because he's a little more in tune with some of the discussions about, the shade structure. I will tell you that, I don't think a shade structure was contemplated for the observation deck. And if we want to do that, I believe we'll have to, during construction, put design elements in place to allow that in the future. So if Tom can maybe chime in, if that's okay, and just discuss that a little bit. He's the engineer, and he would have more expertise in that.
Tom, are you on the line? Be on the line?
Yep.
There he is.
There you go.
Hi, Tom Green. I'm one of the project managers for the city's Beach Community Redevelopment Agency. We have, originally when we started this project, this is a design build project as part of our design criteria package. In order to do the project, we had at one point in time looked at trying to do some shade canopy over the spectator seating area, which would be on the north building. Part of the challenge for us was trying to get some type of shade and structure out there, more of a permanent canopy that also could allow us to do the sports stadium lighting. We have lighting on the north side of the venue that kind of is higher, that shoots down and provides illumination for the lighting. So when you put a shade structure out there, part of the challenge was coming up with some lighting that would meet the photometric for the competition swimming. When we contemplated looking at the north amenity deck, one of the initial renderings did show some type of shade element out there. And if that's something that commission wants us to explore, we can go back and start investigating that and trying to have that option in there. But we can as well explore shade for the competition on the north side. It just does pose a challenge when it comes to providing the lighting with what we currently have designed for the project.
Understood. I just think that wherever possible, without interfering with the lighting and just giving, some people will want to sit in the sun. That's great. But just that option for people that might not want to sit in the sun and yet still enjoy the activities that are going on there, just some space.
I think we also need to keep in mind that, we have a finite budget. So, we don't mind looking at it. We don't, and if we could figure out how to pay for it, we certainly will. But that'll be something that if it does increase the cost, we're going to have to be able to identify where those funds are going to come from.
Vice Mayor.
Understood.
Vice Mayor, if you look at the rendering on page 2 of 2, I agree with what you're saying, because I remember sitting in many of audiences in the baking sun, especially when we were dedicating that ship that came to Fort Lauderdale a couple years ago, where we all baked out in the sun. But considering that the sun is probably going to be in the southern sky, kind of lowered, and people watching this diving competition, if you put shade structures there, you're going to block the view of the competition. So it's just something to think about as going forward, because I'm not sure you can have both, a view and shaded from the sun. But anyway, I'll leave it to minds who are greater than mine, who are architecturally talented and know what materials are available, that might be able to work through a solution on this.
No, that's great. And it won't always be just the diving, Mayor. There'll be sometimes where there'll just be a lot of swimming events,
That's true too. You're right.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas,
Yes.
Vice Chair Glassman,
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Chair Trentalis.
Yes, and the item is approved. Any other further business of the CRA board?
No, sir.
There being none, the meeting's adjourned. We'll begin our evening meeting in about 15 minutes.